What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto has a dragon Kwami? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. 11-year-old Naruto had just led a group of Anbu through the city and in at the training grounds. For almost 3 hours they had been chasing him. 3 long hours, during which he stayed ahead by knowledge of the area as well as practically endless stamina. Finally though they cornered him. With his back towards the fence of training ground 44, aka the Forest of Death, Naruto was searching for a way out. Damn, these guys are persistent. If I didn't know better I'd say they have ulterior motives. Just as the group moved in to apprehend the criminal, a voice rang out. Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu. Water style. Water dragon blast technique. In response, a huge, dragon-shaped torrent of water smashed brutally on the Anbu, knocking them unconscious. Just then a figure walked out of the shadows. It was a man, about 25 years old. Black hair, black eyes with the Konoha headband on his forehead. He wore light chain link type armor that was mostly covered by a black vest. He also wore a pair of spiked bracers and shin guards, completing the outfit with boots and black trousers. He seemed extremely strong if one went by account of the muscles, as well as very experienced judging by the scars on him. On his back 2 swords were diagonally stored for easy access. The person then spoke in a mocking tone. Oh dear, it seems my jutsu missed. Oh, whatever am I going to do? Right after that he just pointed at the knocked out Anbu and started laughing. Ha 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 ha, what idiots. Serves you right, not getting an under-trained academy student in 3 hours. Ha losers. Meanwhile Naruto was gawking at the new arrival. Was he friend or foe? He seemed strong and had this aura about him. He felt commanding in a sense. Yet at the same time he seemed damn carefree. Naruto just decided to laugh along the man. Ha ha ha, you're right. They couldn't catch me and they're Anbu? They're a joke. Maybe I should skip to Anbu right now. Hee, I like you, kid. Say, what's your name? I think I know who you are, but I just want to confirm it. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the next Hokage and the best of them all. Hey, means I finally found you, Naruto. You're just like your parents. Damn, I missed that laugh. Immediately the atmosphere became heavy. Naruto just barely spoke. You know my parents? WHO are they? Where are they? Tell me. Wait, you mean Sandame didn't tell you? Oh, he's in for it now. And yeah, I know your parents. They were important to me. As for where they are, I'll tell you, but first things first. Probably we don't have much time. I'm willing to train you, kid. It won't be easy and you'll probably want to assassinate me a few times. In fact, I'll consider myself a failure if you don't try it at least 5 times per month. So do you, Uzumaki Naruto, accept to be my apprentice in everything I have to teach you? You will not question my commands and you will follow my orders. I'm a very harsh teacher, but I'll make you stronger than anyone else. Now tell me, will you be my apprentice? Wait, you want to teach me? No one's ever taught me. And what about my parents? And what about Naruto? One thing at a time. Now tell me, will you be my apprentice? I promise to tell you about your parents and why the village hates you tonight. But tell me now, otherwise the council will stop me. Okay, if you promise. Yeah, I, Uzumaki Naruto, accept apprenticeship. Phew, good, now the idiots can't separate us. Okay, now hang on to me and I'll take us to the Hokage's office. Naruto nodded and grabbed the man's arm as he used Shunshin no Jutsu, body flicker technique, a short-range teleportation technique, repeatedly to get them to the Hokage tower. As soon as they got inside they hurried through the corridors. The man just forced his way through everyone. Naruto then noticed that Anbu seemed to back away from him and bowed to his presence. Just who was this guy? He never got the chance to ask as he unceremoniously barged into the Hokage's office to see him talking to his old teammates and Danzo. Naruto barely had time to get inside when he felt an unimaginable bloodlust before his escort exploded. You 3 get the heck out. Now. Non-negotiable, get the fuck out now. Then Naruto felt it. It was unlike any chakra he had ever felt before. It felt oppressive. Sharp. As if that person's very existence could physically cut him to pieces. Now Ryu-san, no reason to get all. I said get out. I will not tolerate you. Get out before I lose my patience. If you want a demon, I'll become that demon. And you know no one in this village can stop me, so get the fuck out. The counselors looked upon that person with fear. His very presence there was a snag in their plans. They could do nothing about it. They'd just send him on another mission soon. After all, the old monkey wouldn't be able to say no. Confidence restored somewhat, they exited the office. The aged man looked upon his two visitors with mixed emotions. This was going to be bad. So, Ryu, what do I owe this visit for? And why is Naruto-kun here? Cut the crap, old monkey. I am not happy. You've disappointed them. I come back here after so long to find Naruto untrained, lacking in proper nutrition, and most importantly with not the slightest idea of who his parents are. Explain that, old monkey. Or maybe I should? Should I tell him the truth? Huh? Sarutobi-sama? Ryu, calm down. Calm down? Listen here, old man, I'm not going to calm down. You are going to give me full guardianship over Naruto so I can train him. And you are also going to give me 1 year so I can properly train him. Then you're going to go to a shrine and pray to any and every manifestation of Kami that he forgives you. Because I'm definitely not going to. You have failed him in every level. Hokage? More a figurehead with no resolve whatsoever. Now ready the papers, cause I'm not going to talk about it. That is enough, Ryu. Is it? You have failed the fourth's legacy, not I. You are the one that allowed these bastards to send me away for years at a time so I couldn't watch over him. So don't tell me it's enough. It will never be enough. All the pain this child has undergone is because of your negligence. Henge into him, Sarutobi. Henge into him and walk around the streets. I saw the looks they give him. Now give me the damn papers. As I said, I am not going to talk about this. It is not a request. Don't worry, Naruto. I'll explain everything tonight. No one's going to underestimate you from now on. No one's going to hurt you ever again. I swear this upon my honor and my life. Sigh. Alright. Naruto is now under your protection. Take good care of him. Finally. Oh, and one more thing. Tell that idiot Danzo to get his root jocks off me, or I won't be responsible for the increase of bodies in the morgue. Our root? But he's supposed to have disbanded them. Oh, Suor. This is Danzo we're talking here. He has them hidden around the village, taking other jobs to act as spies. Root is still active, just more secretive. By the way, I'll personally take care of Root HQ soon. In 2 to 3 years I'll give Konohagakure a fireworks show the likes of which they have not seen since the Great War. It's high time someone took these idiots down. One last thing before we leave. Watch out for your ex-teammates. They smelled too much of Danzo. Trust no one, Hokage. Most of all those that you used to. Not even me. Sigh. That's why I never took your place. I'd have killed the lot of them already. Anyway, I'll take my leave now. Goodbye. Gigi? What's going on? Who's this? Oh yeah, I forgot to introduce myself. Anbu, Captain Ryu. This is not my real name, but I've discarded my old name as I am unworthy of it. Just call me Ryu or Sensei from now on. You're coming with me to my home just outside Konoha's walls. You're going to live there for a long time because I'll be training you personally. As I promised, no one's going to hurt you again. And an Uzumaki never breaks a promise. I might not be born an Uzumaki, but I was raised by one, so I sure as hell am not going to betray that part. Even though I failed her and everything else. Now come on, we gotta buy you some stuff and get your possessions so we can go home. Eh? What do you mean? Come on, tell me. Not now, Naruto, we gotta go. I'll tell you everything. Now let's get going, we're wasting time here. Okay already, geez. Better teach me some cool jutsus though. Naruto-kun, Ryu is stronger than me. Much stronger. Don't worry, he'll teach you many things. Are really, Gigi? Come on then, let's go. Yelled Naruto. Cool jutsus? Hell yeah. The other two laughed at the endless energy he possessed. After saying goodbye, the pair left the tower. First stop was a weapon and equipment shop. Ryu walked in calmly, with Naruto behind him. Ohio Tencho-san, Tencho equals owner, I think. I want to buy some training equipment. I want chakra weights, 5 sealing scrolls, explosive tags, belt and leg pouches, a Junin-style vest, kunai, shuriken and chakra-sensitive paper. I also need sealing ink, sealing paper, a couple normal large scrolls, pen and ink. Oh definitely sir, one moment. Wait, who's this? I'm sorry sir, but I don't serve its kind here. Go somewhere else. Oh, you don't? And why's that? You know why. He's the demon brat. Hey thanks. Now I can arrest you, Baka. Anbu. Arrest this idiot. I'll confiscate what I need. Wha? Anbu? Immediately 4 Anbu appeared and took the owner away. Ryu turned happily to Naruto and told him he could pick whatever he wanted. After getting what they needed, Ryu sealed them in one of the sealing scrolls. Of course, Naruto asked him how he did it, which earned a sigh from his teacher, who proceeded to explain him the basics of sealing items in scrolls. Ryu once again found himself wondering if he really was wise in not razing the village to the ground due to its inhabitants' stupidity. After purchasing the training equipment, Ryu dragged Naruto for a change of attire. After much complaining, shouting, cursing and sighing, Naruto was forced to change his eternal orange jumpsuit. Now he wore black pants, boots and a Mukul t-shirt. Over it he wore his new black Junin-style vest. He also bought a leather belt. Seriously, where did he hang his belt pouch before? Ryu also bought him some changes to that attire, mostly adding red stripes and changing the color from black to deep blue or dark green. Next up was buying foodstuffs, where Ryu laughed at Naruto's fascination with ramen. The happy atmosphere though died out when they got to Naruto's apartment. Ryu told Naruto to bring everything he wanted to him so they could seal it. After Naruto got his few belongings together, they left the house to never return. As Naruto walked to the gates, he couldn't help but wonder how his life would change. He'd have a teacher now. Someone who knew his parents too. Not to mention one that Hokage himself said he was very strong. Why was this person concerning himself with Naruto? Why did he not look down upon him? Lastly, who were his parents? And why would Gigi of all people hide this from him? Naruto's musings though came to an abrupt stop when the pair came within range of Ryu's home. More like mansion. A huge building surrounded by a huge garden protected by a wall. As Ryu went to unlock the gates, he turned to Naruto and smiled. Poor kid's eyes were bulging out. Well kid, welcome home. Let's go put the stuff down so we can talk. The mansion had many rooms, 2 libraries, a huge kitchen, and from the rooms Naruto was allowed to see there was also a forge. There were also 3 different dojos and 5 training grounds. By far the largest room though was the living room. Directly in front of the entrance it had doors that led to the various areas of the house, and it was huge. It alone was about 3 to 4 times Naruto's apartment. On one side of it, next to the kitchen, was the table with pillows down. On the other side though were a bunch of pillows sprawled along the floor. Ryu dropped his sealing scrolls and went to simply sit on a few pillows in a relaxed manner. He then motioned Naruto to sit in front of him and spoke. Now Naruto, I think it's time to tell you about your parents, why the village hate you and your relationship with me. It's going to take us a while and I know you'll be angry. So I'm telling you now, calm down and get ready because you're not going to like all of the story. Are you ready? Okay, then let me start. Where do I begin? I'll start from where I came from. Back in the last great shinobi war. I was an ordinary orphan trying to survive in the orphanage in the midst of war. Since the orphanage was out of Konoha, though, we had a problem with invading shinobi. Not few times did we have to run away from them after stealing some provisions since ours had ran out. Don't worry, they usually repaid us in kind. Life was hard, but we were like a small family there. We had to watch out for each other to survive. It all ended one day though. Some ninjas came inside the orphanage and started killing children. Then they grabbed our caretaker, the only adult we knew that didn't hate us, and tried to force themselves on her. I won't lie to you, I was scared. Then again, I was a 5-year-old kid. I was so disgusted with myself. I was there cowering in a corner while in front of my eyes someone was trying to hurt the one person in my life that didn't hurt me or look down on me. In the end, I chose to act. I grabbed a kunai that was embedded on the wall and attacked. Luckily only 2 shinobi were in the room. The others were looking for our food. So I charged and stabbed one of the ninjas on the back of his head, killing him. Then I turned on the other one and stabbed him in the stomach and spilled his guts out. He had time to scream though, so his friends came over. After killing the caretaker, they proceeded to torture me as payment. Suddenly there was a flash of yellow outside and a blonde man with blue eyes appeared. He pretty much tore them apart. After killing them, he asked me if I wanted to be stronger. I did. He then told me to call him Minato-sensei. I was saved by Namikaze Minato. Konoha's yellow flash. A couple of years later I was called a prodigy. I became especially skilled in kenjutsu and ninjutsu. It was a constant war, so I kept fighting all the time. Sigh, a mere gaki and I was a killer. As you can understand, it got to me. I began to think like a monster. Kill, kill and kill were my thoughts. I won't lie to you, I almost did go mad. Then I met her, the most beautiful woman I ever met. Long red hair and shining green eyes. Half the village loved her and the rest hated her. Well, the men loved her and the women envied her. She was the princess of Uzu no Kuni and a most capable warrior. A master of the sword arts. But if you ever saw her smile you'd never know. Such kindness. Such joy of simply being alive. Even in the midst of war she had fun, made jokes, pulled pranks and helped others. She met me one day in one of the training grounds as I was venting. She stopped me and started talking to me. Not more than a couple of hours later I was sobbing in her arms. She then offered to teach me how to defend those that I cared for. I met my second sensei there. Her name was Uzumaki Kushina. You Uzumaki? My last name is Uzumaki. What? Not yet Naruto. Soon. Let me finish. Anyway, neither I nor Kushina-sama knew we were being watched by Minato-sama, but at that moment he fell in love with her. He tried to get to her and after quite a few rather embarrassing situations he managed to date her. She was after all an important ambassador and he was possibly Konoha's next Hokage. Or that's what they told everyone. I knew better. They loved each other and fought like a married couple. Kushina-sama didn't give a rat's ass about do's and don'ts. Minato-sama was a bit of a pervert. They weren't perfect but to me, it was obvious they loved each other. And in the end they married in secret. You see, Minato-sama had many enemies. They might strike at him through her so he had to make it secret. Around that time I had surpassed Kushina-sama in Kenjutsu. By far too. I had learned and practiced a lot. I made new jutsus on the fly. I even went so far as to remake jutsus that belonged to clans. During that time I donned a clay mask and an armor and went to solo destroy whole battalions. Yes, I'm serious. I'm not a mere combat type shinobi. I am a siege type shinobi. I know large area affecting jutsus and I made ninjutsu style of my own. I called it Nigyo Kentai. By combining two elements I was able to unleash destruction on a whole different level. I became known as Konoha's Dragon Rider at that time, because of one of my most powerful jutsus. It literally made a dragon made of molten rock that I rode on the head. Sigh. I was the perfect killing machine. No one ever noticed though that I always cried when I killed. That was the real reason I wore my mask. Don't get me wrong, I love fighting. I hate killing though. Anyway, at some point the war came to an end. I was about 11 or 12 then. I spent so much time around Minato-sama and Kushina-sama that I saw them as my parents. And they would become my parents by adopting me. Can you understand my happiness? I was thrilled. My own family. My greatest dream. Of course the council objected and delayed the whole adoption, but to us it didn't matter. It was only a matter of time. In all this time Minato-sama was selected as Yondaime Hokage. After a few months Kushina-sama became pregnant with Minato-sama's child. It was some of the best time of my life. No war, no deaths, just wonderful peace and calm. Or well, mostly, but I'll tell you some other time. Anyway, as Kushina-sama was nearing the last months of the pregnancy her health seemed to deteriorate. She had the choice of abortion but she never took it. She said, and I quote, "I've never backed down from anything before and I sure as hell won't back down from giving birth to my own child. I will not kill my child, especially not before my son has had the chance to live." End quote. In the last days of her pregnancy it became clear to us that one of the two wouldn't survive. Either Kushina-sama or her son would have to die. I begged Kushina-sama to kill her son so she could live and try again, but she'd have none of this. She stood by her decision and decided to give birth. Then we received just as bad news. The Kyuubi was coming. I spent the last days trying to help Minato-sama find a way to defeat it. We never found a way but one. A seal master would have to give up his life to summon the Shinigami. And even then it wouldn't die. You see, it's impossible to kill a Biju. They are mostly chakra after all. The best thing you can do is seal it inside a newborn baby. I asked to be given either of these burdens. Either to give my life up for the Shinigami and suffer a fate worse than death, inside the Shinigami's belly, or to have the Kyuubi sealed in me. I however was not eligible for either. I was too old to have the Kyuubi sealed in me and I was no seal master. I had dedicated my life to mastering the way of the sword, not the Fuinjutsu. I felt like I was back then at the orphanage. A small scared child. Through all this war and bloodshed nothing had changed. I was still weak. Worse of all, I knew what would happen. Kushina-sama gave birth to a son. A blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy. I am still haunted by her smile while she held her only son. Then Minato-sama came in and took the boy away for the ceiling. It was the only boy born that day, and ironically enough it was Minato's own son. Even if there was another child, Minato-sama would rather have his own son hate him rather than seal a demon inside someone else's child. I went with him crying all the while. It was the first time I cried without my mask. I went behind the Kyuubi to attack its legs in an attempt to slow it down while Minato-sama would take care of the ceiling. When it all ended, Kyuubi was gone, its soul sealed inside the belly of a newborn orphan. I was there for Minato-sama's last words. He said, "Goodbye, my son. I am so sorry I'll never see you grow up to be the best person you can be. I'm sorry for what I've done to you and I hope you'll forgive me. Live good, my son. You'll always make me proud. After all, you're the only one I could trust with keeping everyone safe." Sarutobi, my son's name, is Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto. He won't know his real name until he's Junin or 18 years old. Farewell, Sochi, be strong. And thus Minato, Yondaime Hokage of Konohagakure, died with his arms around his only child. You, Naruto, you are his child, his legacy, both their legacy. Your true name is Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. No, this is a lie. You lie. He can't be, he can't my dad. Why didn't anyone tell me? Am I the demon? Is that why? Screamed Naruto, tears welling from his eyes. No, you're no demon. You're Uzumaki Naruto. You're the only thing keeping everyone alive. The other bastards in this village see only the Kyuubi. I see the little brother I never had. That day, Naruto. That day I threw away my name. The name your father gave me because I failed him. The name he gave me was Arashi because there was a storm brewing when I met him. You and maybe 5 others know my real name. To everyone else I'm just my Anbu mask. Now get out of your head that you're a demon. If anyone, I am the demon. You haven't killed anyone. I have. But how? How can you be so sure I'm not the Kyuubi? How? How can you smile at me knowing I killed these people? Because you are like your mother. If you were a monster, would you be crying? If you were a monster, would you be doubting your own innocence? No. If you were a monster, you'd have laughed. You'd have enjoyed it. You'd have hurt others. Instead, the only traits you have from the Kyuubi you have is a prankster's personality and the whisker marks. Besides, I'd trust the person that would be my father. I'd trust your father. I'd trust in Minato-sama and in you. And most of all, I believe in you. I believe you'll keep the damned fox away from everyone. Besides, didn't you hear? You are the one Minato-sama could ever trust with keeping the Kyuubi down. He couldn't trust me. He couldn't trust anyone else. He trusted you. You are no demon. You are a hero. A born hero. A hero that has kept everyone safe for 11 years. I am a hero? Yondaime, my dad, trusted me with this. If dad and you trust me with this, I'll have to make you proud. And I'll make mom proud too. I'll protect everyone. Thanks, Arashi-Nisan. Naruto, still crying, hugged his sensei, who after being called a Ni-san could only smile at the still crying blonde. After Naruto fell asleep, he carefully picked him up and tucked him to bed. Ryu got outside and watched at the moon. It tired him a lot. And hurt him. But I'll be here for him. Do you hear me, Kushina Okawa-sama? I'll be here for your son. I'll bring your smile back to the world. And I'll be damned if I allow another inbred bastard lay a finger on him. They have forsaken him for far too long. I'll train him and make him better than me. He'll make you proud. My little brother will make you both proud. This I swear. With that last vow, Ryu, who once would have been called Namikaze Arashi, went to sleep, his thoughts lingering on his little brother and student. He'd take care of him. No one would ever separate them if he had a say in it. No one. The next morning, Naruto woke up wondering if everything was a dream. Then he took in everything around him. A new bedroom. In other words, a new house. So everything was true. His parents, the Kyuubi, everything. It still hurt, but he'd get over it. Next time though he'd meet Sandaime, he'd have a word with him about it all. Slowly getting up, he changed clothes, as apparently he slept without changing into his pajamas. Remember, Ryu was the one to get him to bed. He didn't undress him cause that would wake him up. After changing, he went out of the room to be assaulted by the smell of breakfast cooking. Remembering his hunger, he quickly got to the kitchen to find Ryu cooking as he was slowly humming a song. Ryu was currently wearing just a pair of trousers and a sheer with his 2 swords strapped to his back. "Ohio Naruto? Finally up, eh? Thought I'd have to wake you up before lunch, hehehe." Ryu didn't even turn around to speak to Naruto. Naruto was kind of surprised, but then again Gigi said he was very strong. Yeah, how did you know it was me, Ryu Nissan? Well, first of all, don't call me Ni-san. I have not earned it. Just call me Sensei. As for how I knew, I identified your chakra signature. It's unique to everyone, so if you know someone's signature you can easily track them. Now go to the eating hall to eat. We have some things to discuss. If I'm going to train you, I'll have to know what you can do. Oh, and if you want a shower it can wait. Naruto sat at the table waiting for his new sensei to get the breakfast. After a filling breakfast of eggs and bacon, Ryu asked him what he could do. Unsurprisingly, he was pissed off again. Naruto, tell me the truth. Has anyone ever taught you anything in the academy? No lies please. Not really. Most teachers ignored me, so I copied everyone else. Only that new teacher Iruka started to teach me, but I still don't understand anything. I see. Well, come on, let's see your taijutsu and accuracy skills. Now how do I prank a bunch of stupid teachers? I'll have to think a bit on that one. I'm out of my pranking shape. Naruto just gaped at his teacher. Seriously, what kind of sensei ever wanted to prank? Meanwhile, Naruto was asking to be taught cool amazing justice only to have his sensei answer not yet. After getting to the training area, Naruto took his taijutsu, brawling stance only to see his sensei facepalm. So, I guess I suck at taijutsu, eh? Yeah, you do. Hey, don't look so defected, Naruto. It's better this way in a sense. I won't be teaching you a taijutsu style anyway. Instead, I'll teach you how to fight. When to attack and when to defend. Where and how to hit where it hurts. Personally, I look down upon those that use a certain style of taijutsu. In my eyes it limits them. Instead, I'll teach you things from all taijutsu styles so you'll combine them and make your own style, okay? You might want to learn your mother's taijutsu style. It's nice and fits your rather explosive personality. Now for shuriken and kunai. Naruto picked up some shuriken and kunai and threw them at the targets. Sigh, I see. You actually have accuracy, but your stance is way off again. I'm guessing you practiced a lot to get this accuracy right? Damn, I was thinking of punishing those idiots with a prank or two, but now I gotta restrain myself from going in there jutsus blazing and level the place. Alright, nothing that can't be fixed. It'll just take time. Too much time. I wonder. Hey Naruto, can you summon up as much chakra as you can while comfortable? Don't use a jutsu, just mold as much as you're comfortable with. I want to check how much you actually have. Naruto nodded and put his hands on the ram hand seal. Chakra flared around Naruto and started growing. And growing. And growing. It became a visible flame around Naruto. Ryu just watched at the flaring power. Naruto's chakra flared in an unbelievable amount for a genin, an unbelievable amount for junins, before it stopped. Naruto just looked at his sensei and said, this is as high as I can get it. After that it kinda feels weird at my stomach. Sensei? Why are you looking at me like that? Hey, haha. What? What idiots? They call you a dead last? Ha 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 ha. This is so retarded. Ryu just laughed at Naruto. Yeah, why? 'Cause kid, you're not a dead last. You have about as much chakra as I do if I remove my restraints. What bloody idiots. They have a prodigy and they concern themselves with that stupid inbred loser? Ha 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 ha. Well Naruto, how about we show them just who the real genius is, eh? Sensei, how about you make it plain to me? Snort. These idiots at the academy concern themselves with that idiotic Uchiha while they ignore you. Well, it sucks for them 'cause I'm calling dibs on the real genius. You probably don't realize it, but you have more chakra than Sandame. Heck, you have as much chakra as I do and you're half my age. If I were to train you, you'll probably become the most dangerous shinobi out there. Now how about I start training you in some real ninjutsu? None of the stupid academy crap. Well, except Kawarimi and Henge. But Bunshin? Come on, it's useless. Instead, I'll teach you some real jutsu. Now here's a trick. I'll teach you a jutsu that'll speed up our training. It's called Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Don't complain, kid. There's a reason you can't do the normal Bunshin. You just pump too much chakra in it. In other words, use it too well. Well, this jutsu though is different. You can pump in as much as you want and it'll never fail. Come on now, try it. Oh, and best of all, it only needs one hand seal. Now come on, try it. Okay. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, yelled Naruto after molding some chakra. Well, some for him, but probably more than most chunin have altogether. Poof, a bunch of perfect clones of Naruto appeared. Now Naruto, tell me, do you feel any tired? Well, this is a kinjutsu of Junin level. Do you realize that you summoned up about 100 clones? Most chunin would have died by summoning up all these. Now here's the cool thing. Apart from hitting your enemies and being able to use all jutsu that you know, they also have one more cool ability. Whatever they learn, you learn. In other words, you can have them study books while you train your body. When they dispel, you'll learn whatever they learned. Get my point? You can also have them work on your chakra control. Now little Naruto, let's start. Hehehehe. So, in short, I have these guys learn the boring book stuff and then I learn them when they go poof. And they can also use chakra. And they can improve my control over it. Awesome. Hey, I knew you'd like it. Alright, now I want you to divide them in 4 groups. I want one group to go to library 1 and each clone pick up 1 scroll. After memorizing it, come back out here and dispel. Make sure that no more than 5 at a time dispel. Same thing with the second group, but they will go to library 2. Group 3 will go practice chakra control with one of my clones, and the last group will start on taijutsu. As for you Naruto, you are not going to sit around doing nothing. I want you to run 20 laps first. Now move, yelled Ryu, making the clones and Naruto jump in the air and start their workout. Meanwhile, Ryu laughed to himself. Oh, how he'd enjoy this. Hours later, we find Naruto panting on the ground, exhausted. I thought I liked you, sensei. But pant, you're damn evil. That wasn't pant training, that was torture. Ha 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 ha, is that so? Well, I went easy on you since it's the first day, but tomorrow it'll be harder. Besides, I warned you, didn't I? Yeah, you did. And I know training is hard. But this is crazy. So, we're all crazy to a point or another. So don't sweat it, kid. Besides, I torture you because I can get away with this. Eh? What do you mean? Simple. If I did this to anyone else, they'd have died already. You, however, recover fast, last long, and are one heck of a fast learner when you want. Come on now, get up. Let me see you do some more exercises. I hate you, sensei. Mwahahahaha, laughed Ryu evilly. Naruto cringed and got up to continue his exercises. Meanwhile, Ryu just wondered how long it would take Naruto to start attacking him. Sure, training was hard. Now it was a matter of learning that which he should have learned all along. Many sit-ups, push-ups later, Naruto was cursing his sensei under his breath. Even his endurance had a limit. He no longer had chakra, no longer had any endurance left to give. He was running on determination, quite literally. Ryu casually walked up to Naruto and sat down next to him. I know you hate me right now. But I know you're also like your dad. You both perform the best under pressure. That's the real reason I'm pushing you so much. I know you'll pull through. Anyway, how about we discuss the training regiment? I am thinking of rotating through 3 different days. The morning exercises will be the same. You'll summon clones and train your body to exhaustion. On the afternoon, we'll rotate through 3 different schedules. One will be spars against each other. For 2, I was thinking you asking me any questions you want. Like if you have a problem with a jutsu or want to start something new, any ideas or anything really. I won't lie if I don't have to, and I'll tell you if I can't answer a question. As for number 3, I was thinking about meditating some hours and then letting you do whatever you like. Be it extra training or going to spend time in the forest. So what do you think? I don't know really. Usually my sensei just ordered me to do something. Never had to choose for myself. But I think it's good. These 2 afternoons will give me time to recover so I don't die from your torture. Sorry about that, little Naruto, but training is hard and you're way behind schedule. I gotta train you harder to catch up. Don't worry though, you'll be awesome soon. Who knows, I might even teach you some of my kenjutsu. Really? When can we start? Ha 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 ha, you're tired one moment and the next fully recovered if I mention jutsus. I wonder what will happen if I mention ramen. Ramen? Where is ramen? Can I have ramen? Please? Ramen? Ha ha ha, you're worse than both of them at the same time. Just as stuck with jutsus and ramen as they were. Your dad even once let an enemy escape after he offered ramen. Ha ha ha, those were the good times. Ha 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 ha, dad did that? I guess I'm like them after all. I just wanted to meet them, you know. Yeah, I know. Best people I ever met. Oh yeah, Naruto, let me see something. Ryu took out a piece of paper. Channel some chakra through this paper. It'll show us which element you are aligned with. Alright, Naruto pumped some chakra through the paper, which made it split in half. What does this mean? Simple, you have an affinity for wind. Wind is the most destructive element. It's weaker than fire but stronger than lightning. Remember, there is no set, stronger, element. Nor does it mean you can only use futon jutsus. It just means you'll have an easier time with them. But you see, wind chakra has one great use. It cuts stuff. Cuts them real good. Eh? That's all? Just cuts them? That's useless. I mean, a sword cuts too, and so does a kunai. True, but a kunai or sword can be stopped. The wind can't. Also, it cuts them real good. You can also use it to improve the edge of a weapon and have it cut right through solid rock. Hey, I should know. I can use wind chakra too. Cool. Oh, and what about swords? Can I have cool swords like your own? Cool swords like my own, eh? Well, I can't give you my Saoryu, I'm afraid. They are my personal swords. But I can give you a sword till you forge your own. Follow me. Naruto got up and followed Ryu to one of the rooms he wasn't shown last night. Once inside, Ryu turned on the light and a cry was heard. What the heck? In front of the odd Naruto were tens of weapons of every shape and size. Polearms, swords, claws, kamas of every type imaginable. They glinted in the light and Naruto could do only one thing: drool. Naruto blinked and stared. A room filled with all kinds of weapons on the walls, glinting in the light. In the center, a small circular area clean of all obstructions. Whoa, little Naruto, this is the first weapons room. You're free to look at every weapon. If anything interests you, pick it up, go to the center and see if it fits you. If it does, then you keep it, if not, then put it back. Whoa, cool. Naruto jumped up and down happily and went to the weapons racks. He never was a weapons fan, but seeing all these great weapons, even he felt a bit of awe. Of course, Naruto being Naruto went straight to the biggest, most badass looking weapons first. After he picked up a katana, real big katana, meant to be used with two hands, he went to the center and tried it out. Immediately Ryu stopped him. Nope, that's not good for you. Oh come on Naruto, not every weapon is suited for everyone. Naruto then proceeded to pick up a naginata, pole with a blade on top, much like a spear with a sword's blade in the end. Again Ryu stopped him after a couple of trial slashes. Angered Naruto pretty much exploded. Why? These are all cool weapons. First you tell me to pick whatever I want and then you tell me no. Make up your mind. Geez. First of all, calm down. A warrior never loses his cool or he will lose his head. Second, as I said, not all weapons are for everyone. I'm sure that with enough time you would be able to properly wield an katana or a naginata. But I'm not looking for a weapon you will be able to use acceptably. I'm looking for a weapon that you'll be able to master. Now shut up and focus. Look at the weapons around you. Let your instincts guide you. Meh, whatever. Say sensei, why do you use two swords? I mean, you can't use ninjutsu like that, right? Hee, now that's a smart question. But in fact I can. You see, when you use a jutsu many times like me, you eventually learn how to use it without hand seals or even calling it out. It's a trick I'll teach you in a few months. Anyway, in simple terms, one weapons allows you to use one-handed seals but is often weaker in close combat compared to two weapons. Two lighter weapons are better in close quarters, but they need a lot more work if you want to use jutsu. You can't let the weapons off your hands in heated combat after all. Don't concern yourself with that right now though. Pick a weapon. After a lot of trial and error, and I mean a lot of trial and error, it was time to eat, as signified by the mutual growls of hunger. The pair just laughed it off and went to eat. As Naruto went to the exit, his eyes fell on a pair of swords. Between a katana and a wakizashi in length, a bit more curved than a katana. Sensei, can I try one of these? Last weapon, I promise. Why not pick one and let me see your form? Naruto picked up one of the swords and went to the middle. Setting in an impromptu stance, he imagined an opponent and started attacking, throwing in the occasional parry or block. After a few seconds, Ryu froze. What? This form? Kushina-sama, are you contacting me through him? These movements are too much like the ones you taught me once. Let's see how he deals with two swords. Naruto, catch! Ryu threw the second blade to Naruto, who almost dropped it in shock. Hey sensei, don't throw weapons at others. It's dangerous. Che, like I care gaki. It was sheathed anyway. Use both swords. Okay if you're sure. Naruto once again started his attacks on his imaginary enemy. Ryu was lost in his musings watching the kid practice. It's feigned. Real feigned. If I wasn't taught by you I'd never see it, but it's there. For whatever reason he seems to have an affinity for using these blades. He has the talent. Now I got to make him use it to its full potential. Looks like I got my work cut out for me. Hee, poor kid, if you thought today was hell, you better not wake up tomorrow. Okay Naruto, that's enough. Of all the weapons you've practiced, this pair suits you the best. I'll start you on them tomorrow. Hee, you just had to go and pick up Kenjutsu. Mwahahaha, this is gonna be fun. Naruto just looked at the wicked smile on his sensei's face before thinking, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. How do I get out of this? I'm so dead tomorrow. Sensei, can't I just put these blades back and I dunno come back to them some other time? Like in a year or so? Ha 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 ha, nice joke, nice joke. Very funny indeed. But no, I'm afraid not. Now strap these blades on your back and get moving. Unless you want to skip lunch, that is. Haha. Race you to the dining room. With that, Ryu left a gaping Naruto before he got up and started running as well. Are all strong adults that crazy? Old man with his smoking and books, that weird guy with the spandex, shudder, or that crazy half-naked woman. Isn't there a normal person around? After a long overdue lunch, Naruto was slowly dozing off. Ryu found that moment to ask him some things. Naruto, how are you dealing with things? I mean with your parents and all? Sigh. Well, I'm dealing with it. Training took my mind off of it. I still have many questions though, and I need answers. I'm still pissed off at the old man for not telling me. I mean, I understand why not tell everyone else, but why not me? Or at least tell me something about them. Instead, he said he didn't know who they were. Do you know how many times I went to sleep wondering if my parents were alive and why they weren't here? That they might be living a great relaxed life while I was left to rot there? But most of all, I hate the council. From the little my clones learned and what you said, they wanted you away from me. Which means they knew about everything. They didn't trust me or you to keep the fox down. Instead, they want me dead for something I didn't do. I really hate it right now. But I'll deal with it. Hey Ryu. Can you tell me some things about my parents? Hee, I can tell you lots about them. Your father, for example, was a pervert. You know of the Hiraishin no Jutsu that allowed him to teleport anywhere, right? Nod. Well, he had a seal in the female side of the onsen so he could take a peek at your mother. Hee, and he always got found and beaten. And of course I always went with him to get him out of trouble. These were the good times. He even made a special henge jutsu for peeking. Ha, my dad was crazy too, eh? He must have been real brave or real stupid if mom was anything like you told me. And what about that henge? What made it special? Well, that henge was special because you could only take one form with it. That of the great pervert Jiraiya. But on the other hand, it never broke unless you cut the chakra off. Why only that form? Well, believe it or not, half the peeping attempts in Konoha that have been placed on Jiraiya are in fact by others that looked like him. Poor Jiraiya sacrificed himself for the sake of perverts everywhere. I'm sure that closet pervert Ebisu would make a statue of him. Hee, good times, good times. I can't count the number of times your mom chased your dad out of the onsen and around town. People thought they hated each other because they played pranks. But if you paid attention, they loved each other like crazy. It was so fun to tease them. Ryu looked lost in the past, remembering long past events, the shadow of a smile forming. We thought ourselves immortals then. You know, like nothing could touch us. If one of us showed up in battle, our enemies trembled. If two showed, our enemies ran. If all three showed up, our enemies occasionally stabbed themselves to make things quicker. It was war, and yet we always had time to fool around, pull pranks and laugh. This is today's most important lesson, Naruto. No matter what, always be yourself. Hey, thanks sensei. Nice to know something about my parents. Now I had some questions about the exercises before. And the pair spent most of the afternoon discussing things. Naruto found book stuff fun for the first time in his life. Ryu, for his part, found that teaching isn't really that bad. In fact, it kinda felt nice. Who knows, maybe he'd become Naruto's Junin sensei. With these thoughts, the two went to sleep early in order to prepare for tomorrow's training. In the morning, after breakfast, Ryu and Naruto went to the training grounds again. Naruto made even more clones than before in order to send the extra ones off for Kenjutsu training. Ryu again had Naruto start doing laps, crunches, push-ups, sit-ups, punches and kicks. One twist compared to yesterday though was that out of the blue, Ryu would ask a random question about the stuff Naruto learned yesterday. Taking too long to answer or not remembering was rewarded with a few kunai. Answering correctly was rewarded with a sweetened jutsu powered down enough to only drench Naruto. The point of the exercise was this. Naruto would be forced and thus later on capable of splitting his attention in doing multiple things without adverse effect. For example, even in the midst of heated combat he'd still be able to make plans and strategies or give orders to his team. It also helped Naruto's reflexes when he failed while improving Naruto's strength and endurance when he answered correctly because drenched clothes weighed a lot. Naruto on his part was thinking he should assassinate his tortuous sensei. I mean, sprinting for 10 miles is just plain torture. Back with the clones, today Library 1 was about chakra theory, its creation, control and manipulation. Library 2 was diplomacy, which seriously annoyed Naruto since it meant pretty much having to put up with jerks. Chakra control was a tree climbing, with the occasional clone puffing out of existence when he fell from too high up. Taijutsu was mostly theory on assessing an enemy. Kenjutsu on the other hand, each clone had 2 swords out and was placed in a different stance. Ryu believed that if each clone completely memorized something and then Naruto learned it, having all clones do the same katas would be counterproductive. It would simply give him 50 versions all identical. On the other hand, 50 clones each doing one different thing. Well, as a wise fighter once said, I don't fear a man that knows 1,000 different kicks, but a man that has practiced a single kick 1,000 times. In other words, Naruto could reap the benefits of repeatedly using multiple strikes at the same time. Most of the morning passed in silence except the occasional curse from Naruto or the whack on Naruto's head when he said something stupid. Regardless of how tired Naruto felt though, he almost jumped for joy when he realized he could climb trees almost effortlessly at the end of morning's training. After a filling breakfast and rejuvenating shower, Ryu had Naruto meditate for a couple of hours. Which wasn't an easy job for Naruto considering how hyped the kid was. Still, he tried to relax, even though his Ani-sensei, as he now called Ryu sometimes, said it would be a long time before he got it down. Nay, Ani-sensei, since now we know what element I'm good at, how about teaching me a cool jutsu? No, not yet. Come on, stingy. It's not that I don't want to baka. It's that you need more control. Ah, why? Because if I taught you a jutsu you weren't ready, you would hurt yourself and those around you. How would you feel if you made blades out of wind come out of your hand, but instead of hitting your enemies, you tore up your friend? That's why I'm not teaching yet. Mama, don't worry. We'll start soon. Besides, it's only been 2 days. Not nearly enough to start you on jutsu, considering these idiots you had back at the academy. Yeah, guess so. Just I hate it that Sasuke already knows a Kaden, Mess, so what? Next time he tries his stupid Kaden you'll know enough to send it back in his face. See how he likes his own little jutsus. I'll be able to do that? We'll see, but chances are yes you will. Besides, I did it before. God, seeing those stupid Uchihas trumped like this. Pure gold, pure gold. I only wish I could have taken a picture of it, Hee, you're worse than me, sensei. But that's what I like. Shall we continue? Heck yeah, we can't relax too much. You got still lots of room to improve. Needless to say, Naruto was exhausted by the time he went to sleep, but even then he couldn't stop a smile from forming on his lips. He finally had someone to link with, a person that would and wanted to help him. Wondering if this how families really feel like, he decided he really liked it. He'd protect his family and friends. With his own 2 hands. A few days later, Naruto had been practicing his kenjutsu with his Bakken when the signal for visitor went off. Knowing that neither he nor Ryu were expecting any guests, supported by the fact that the alarm that went off was not of the main entrance, Naruto quickly got his clones to henge into stones and grass leaves, while he himself would welcome the visitor. Keeping up the exercises as if nothing happened, Naruto was quite surprised when he easily discovered the hidden intruder. It was a familiar scantily clad woman, though from the way she moved Naruto easily figured out she was a shinobi and a pretty darn good at that. Not to mention her chakra was quite high, most probably higher than Iruka's. Cursing his Aniki for going out at a time like this, Naruto readied his Bakken in a defensive stance, hoping to at least delay the intruder until Ryu got there. You know you're intruding, right? Naruto's voice startled the woman, who reflexively threw a pair of kunai. Said weapons were easily deflected by the two Bakken in the Gaki's arms. Getting over her surprise, she smirked and licked her lips. Ryu had been pretty stubborn. The child was good, even though everyone in Konoha knew he was dead last. Well, time to see who's right, thought the woman. Drawing a pair of kunai from Kwami knows where. According to Naruto, she licked her lips and charged. The woman's ki was rather intense, but after Ryu's show of power a few days ago, Naruto wasn't even disturbed. He had felt worse anyway. Like when he accidentally burned a Cyclopean ninja's orange books. Or when he painted the Uchiha clan's clothes neon orange. Good times, good times. Grasping his Bakken firmly, Naruto took a defensive posture, both blades in front of him, making a cross. Legs spread out for maximum mobility and stability, Naruto tensed his muscles in anticipation, cursing the fact that Ryu didn't trust him with normal swords while practicing. The woman, Anko now remembered her name to be, charged in a weird, random, zigzag pattern, her speed making it very difficult to predict and counter. Or it would be, if Naruto wasn't unpredictable himself. Using a quick, sealless Kawarimi with one of his Hengid clones behind her, he lashed out with the right sword, keeping the left as defense. It was a good choice, as the crazed woman dodged and lashed out with a kunai strike to the midsection. Parrying the blow, Naruto pivoted, sending her towards his previous position, while he placed himself in perfect striking position, blades raised. A foot lashed out hitting Naruto, only for him to burst into smoke, as one of the clones had sacrificed himself to protect him. From behind the smoke, Naruto leapt at Anko, blades wheezing through the air. Hearing the sound, Anko whirled, blocking both strikes with her kunai. Knowing that Anko would use all her strength in the block, Naruto used it a bar, holding himself in the air in order to come from under with a kick. Anko saw it and disengaged, leaning backwards, almost horizontally in order to dodge. Anko's foot lashed out and kicked Naruto in the stomach. The blonde rolled to a stop, his stance crouched and ready for a pounce. It was obvious that numbers wouldn't work on this enemy. However, Anko seemed to not take him seriously either. If he could use that underestimation. Naruto let his body remain crouched with the Bakken pointing up and to the side. Kuma no Kame, stance of the bear. The words came forth as Naruto's chakra flared and wrapped itself around the blades. It was a defensive stance, made to block and take a blow when in fact you're just diverting all the energy to the ground, or another attack. It would be hard for Naruto to redirect the energy to an attack, like Ryukid, but that didn't mean it didn't have its use. Especially since his chakra would reinforce his attacks, hopefully dealing some damage. However, there was another reason he used this. Not only would it protect him until he figured something out, but it would also drive the enemy to miscalculate his speed until the moment Naruto would break out of the stance and unleash another attack. Anko smirked seeing that stance. Ryu used it a few times as well, but the kid obviously hadn't mastered it. It was pretty darn good though for a week's worth of training. Deciding to try it out, Anko charged. The blades came dizzyingly fast, but still visible to Naruto. Seeing as they came in a double thrust, Naruto made a cross with his Bakken and threw them to the side, using the resulting momentum to spin and hit Anko's back with his Bakken. Anko stumbled forward. This was no Kuma no Kame. Kuma preferred strength and stamina, this was speed and flexibility. The brat had tricked her. Naruto smirked inwardly. Ichibi, he thought. Tensing his muscles quickly, he charged the surprised Anko, blades ready for a thrust. Anko rose her kunai to parry, when Naruto suddenly leapt at her for an overhead strike with his right Bakken. Anko's kunai also rose in anticipation of the blow. As the Bakken hit the kunai, Anko was surprised to notice that Naruto's hold of the Bakken had shifted slightly. Her eyes widened as Naruto twisted his wrist, which in turn caused the edge of the Bakken to reverse and point upwards. However, due to the curve of the blade, that meant that the Bakken's point was aimed directly at the gap between her collarbone and her back, right next to her neck. The Bakken was thrust down with surprising force, as Naruto's left Bakken came for a swipe to her stomach. Anko stumbled back. Naruto's grin widened. Nibby. By now Anko was getting pissed. The blows didn't hurt anything but her pride. Deciding to up the ante, Anko reversed her blades, only to see Naruto mimic her action with his Bakken. Washi no Kame. Stance of the eagle. Anko blinked, she knew that stance as well. It depended on quick dashes with quick lacerations coming from the reversed blades as you ran past an enemy. Alternatively, the user blocked with the blades, using the forearm to support the blade, before knocking the attack to the side and executing the enemy with a quick spin or dash. Only one problem: this style was meant for larger men than the brat, as well as actual bladed weapons. A Bakken wouldn't be much good. Naruto and Anko charged, their motions near identical. Anko's blades came from both directions, forcing Naruto to block and disengage as the style commented. Deciding to test it out, Anko kept up the attack as Naruto dodged, weaved and parried attack after attack, waiting for the right moment. As Anko made an impaling attack with her kunai, Naruto unleashed his own attack. Using both Bakken to block the double impale, Naruto sent it to the side and entered Anko's guard. From there, he pressed his body onto Anko's arms, preventing her from countering or attacking him. Before she had time to blink, Naruto spun in reverse, using his Bakken to impale Anko between the ribs. Of course that didn't do anything but annoy the Junin, but he wasn't over. Reversing his motion yet again, Naruto's right blade lashed out at Anko's temple, dizzying her momentarily. By the time the Junin had shaken the fuzziness away, Naruto was several steps back, a blade on his shoulder and the other pointing the ground in a relaxed fashion, his smirk teasing her. "Hey Sanbi, let's see if I can also pull off Yanbi." With that annoying stance, Naruto knew he would provoke Anko. And that's exactly what he wanted. Her right blade held forward and the left for defense, Anko recklessly charged the overly brat. Her stab however never quite made it, as the blade on Naruto's shoulder descended very fast and diverted it to the side harmlessly. Anko's left kunai reversed again, in a normal grip now, and sped for Naruto's belly as well. The blade that was pointing at the ground now rose and diverted the blade harmlessly again. Before she had time to send her knee in Naruto's unprotected groin, he had expertly reversed his hold on the Bakken. With a curved motion that betrayed the hours of practice behind it, Naruto's reverse-held blades turned parallel to the ground, all the while keeping Anko's blade in safe distance, before lashing out with a dual reverse slash on Anko's chest, just under her neck. Immediately, they reversed direction and uncoiled themselves from Naruto's body. In an instant, Anko's chest was struck again in a cross shape by the reverse-held blades. Anko grunted. The brat had humiliated her. She expected to find a brat playing at swords and instead she met a cunning, if under-equipped and underage warrior. "Ouch, that actually hurt you, brat." "Well, that's what it's supposed to do." A laugh behind the two diffused the situation before Anko could kill the brat. Ryu walked in on the two with a big smile on his face. Unnoticed by the two, Anko's face flushed a bit, but she managed to pass it off as being tired. The reason? He was half naked, wearing just his trousers, showing off numerous scars and well-toned muscles. "So how did you like my Otuto here? I told you he's good, but did you believe me? No, you just had to have your ass handed to you." Anko bit her tongue and swallowed her first comments about her and Ryu's ass that came to mind. Instead she just huffed and pouted. "You never said he was quite that good though. Besides, he didn't play by the rules." Ryu laughed at Anko's antics. "And the rules are?" Anko grinned in response. "I win." She then struck a victory pose, causing the other two males to sweat drop. Naruto decided to pipe up. "So Aniki, who's the Nichan over here? Friend of yours?" Seeing a chance to make fun of his brother, Naruto raised his pinky and mocked. "Or is she your girlfriend? You're both just as crazy." Ryu and Anko both looked at each other, realizing that their state of half-dressing did indeed point out to such a relationship, and both turned around, vigorously denying it. Even forgetting the fact that Naruto called them crazy. Then again, it wasn't that far from the truth. After the teasing moment passed, Ryu turned serious to Naruto. "Well, I saw the fight and I have one question. What the hell were you doing? You completely messed up both Kuma no Kame and Washi no Kame. I thought I taught you better than that." It might have worked on Anko as she seriously underestimated you, but a more serious opponent. Naruto smirked. "I know, that's why I didn't use Kuma or Washi no Kame." Thoroughly enjoying the confused looks, Naruto continued. "Well, I noticed that none of the stances in our fighting style quite fits me. They aren't unpredictable enough, so I set out to make my own. It's still in the works, but the main gist is this. I use stances that are either well known or without any real threat to lure my opponent to a certain place. When there, I lash out with completely unexpected attacks. For example, in Kuma no Kame, you don't expect someone to dodge. The entire stance is geared to standing firm on the ground and taking the blow before retaliating. I took that preconception and broke it. The difference from Kuma no Kame and my stance is very small and easily hidden under proper clothing, but it enables me to perform the attack I did on you, Anko. Same thing with Washi no Kame's alteration. Only another swordmaster would be able to notice the difference, and even then, unless they knew I can do this, they would simply believe I have the stance wrong. Anko and Ryu blinked a couple of times. Naruto continued. It's simple really, but it needs a lot of practice. I've spent several days and it still isn't good enough. I was supposed to hit more vulnerable points, like the larynx and underbelly or spine, but I need a lot of work. Really, the only way they worked is because you underestimated and tried to predict me. If you didn't know about the stances, I would have had much less of an advantage. Ryu looked in pride at his apprentice. So what do you call this style? Well, it depends on flexibility and speed a lot, as well as quick wit and unpredictability. So, ironically enough, the only animal I can relate it with is the kitsune. Therefore, this is the kitsune no Kame. Kami does have a weird sense of humor after all. Both Junin laughed at Naruto's declaration. Naruto continued. Even though I hate Kyuubi, I also respect his power. So in honor of this power, no matter how misused it was, I have named these attacks after tails. I practiced the first 4 tails, Ichibi, Nibi, Sanbi and Yanbi in that order. An attack gets its name from the times it strikes the opponent. Of course, the more tails, the harder it is to perform. Yanbi and above are lethal, but it's real hard not telegraphing your attack to the enemy. Right now, I only know 1 attack from each tail, but I'm working on it. So it's a style hiding in other styles, misguiding the enemy and striking from unexpected angles. I see now, it's very good, but it would only work against someone that has learned his art in a dojo or from a teacher. Those that know their skills due to improvising and experience in unwelcome environments would have an advantage against many of the attacks. At least they are quite fluid and can change mid-strike. It's why you added wit, right? Anyway, Anko, come in and have some sake. I hope you have lots of news to share, considering how long I haven't been in this village. Ryu, Anko and Naruto went in to retire for the day. Naruto would later learn that Anko and Ryu had known each other for a long time, though they never shared the exact length of time. So why exactly are you here, Anko? Asked Naruto. Well, the village got kind of annoying, so I thought I could bunk here until the jerks calm down. Ryu nodded in understanding. After all, he knew why the village sometimes treated her like the plague. Naruto on the other hand could understand anyone that had the same problems. Of course the calm reprisal wouldn't last long, as Ryu remembered that they were still burning daylight, which meant more training for Naruto. In the past week, Naruto had not only learned the basics of various taijutsu and kenjutsu styles, he had also taken up several projects on himself. He was quite interested in forging, seeing as he'd be using swords in the future, so who better to forge your sword than yourself? Besides, it was a relaxing exercise for Naruto, the clang of metal against metal giving him a slow, yet steady, tempo he used for his meditation. So far, he hadn't started forging himself, but he quite often watched Ryu do it. Several days later, Naruto had learned that Anko was a poison specialist, though he didn't know the details as to how and when. So he asked her for help in identifying and neutralizing poisons as well as how to make a few of the simplest, yet effective, ones. For her part, Anko liked having someone to teach as most of the village despised her for being a former student of Orochimaru. In Naruto, she found her own childhood hero, someone that had gone through worse than herself, but still came on top. So, in her unique style, Anko started teaching Naruto the basics of poisons. How to identify them by sight or scent, how to find them in the wild, how to make anti-venoms. As the weeks passed, Naruto came to an end with the chakra control he gained from regular exercises. Sure, he had only mastered tree and water walking, but he knew that he would never be able to match a medic's control no matter what. When confronted with that, Ryu asked Naruto to come with him to the training grounds. Alright Naruto, here we start your second level of chakra control. As I've told you before, all Uzumaki had insane chakra reserves, cutting into their control. Even with a large amount of it stored in their blades, something I'll be teaching you when you actually get your blades, they still had inordinate amounts. So, to correct this, they changed their way of thinking. Instead of limiting and restraining their output, they learned to completely control it even in maximum power. In other words, they were able to shift their ninjutsu even after the technique had been unleashed or increase the potency of an attack instead of simply its size. The most adept members, like your mother, could even create holes in a wide area attack, protecting allies while decimating their enemies. Of course, you shouldn't expect to do it from the beginning, but it's a good goal in the future. Naruto's jaw was hanging, as was Anko's, as they heard the Uzumaki clan's ability. Normally, if someone was to increase the chakra flow inside a jutsu, say Kaden, Gokakyu no Jutsu, fire style, great fireball technique, they would result in an wider area of effect, albeit with the same heat. The Uzumaki clan, however, were able to change that by limiting and condensing their chakra to an insane degree, as well as be able to manipulate its size and shape even outside their bodies, a dream for most shinobi. Naruto's eyes gleamed with the possibilities and Ryu smiled. From now on, you will perform the basic morning training, but you will not use any chakra. In other words, no kage bunshin or chakra to help climb or run. You will need your entire reserves. Now, we'll start today with the basics. Anko, you can stay as long as you swear to never share it with anyone else. Anko took the oath, seeing as she was too curious for this to let go. In response, Ryu had Naruto sit down in the basic meditation stance. Alright, now we can start. This exercise has several steps, each harder than all the previous ones at the same time, so be prepared for it to take some time. First of all, I want you to mold all your chakra, except the kyubis. Naruto complied and created a raging inferno of a light blue fire, surprising Anko, who had never seen such a spectacle. Ryu's voice came again with more instructions. Now I want you to shape this chakra. Not just any shape, but a whirl with you in the center. Anko, let's go. He'll tell us when he's got it down. It took several days for Naruto to complete it. It became much easier when Ryu gave him a hint, telling him to imagine it as if it were a domino, with his chakra acting as the pieces, starting from the center and making the rotation piece by piece. The second level of the exercise was to compress it. During it, Naruto was forced to compress it to the point where his chakra would directly interact with the physical world. The hint of this exercise was to make it as tight as possible using as few domino pieces as possible. When, almost 2 weeks later, Naruto finished that part, Ryu told him of the next step, rotation. Naruto was forced to make his chakra-formed spiral rotate without losing shape or consistency, with him at the center as always. Surprisingly, it took little time for Naruto to manage this, as he was slowly getting the hang of the training course. Of course, every day he went to sleep exhausted as he was reduced to almost nil chakra reserves. When he thought all was over, Ryu presented him with yet another level of the exercise. In this level, Naruto was forced to make not one, but 2 equal-sized spirals and rotate them. One clockwise, the other counterclockwise. Naruto was so tired that, this month's assassination attempts were mostly made out of poisoned food rather than outright attacks. The third and fourth levels of that exercise were on the same idea. 3, later 4, extremely condensed chakra spirals, 2 clockwise, 2 counterclockwise, spinning at the same time in clockwise and counterclockwise rotation. According to Ryu, there was a fifth level that consisted of instantly changing the rotation of any, or all, spirals in an instant. However, that would take too much time even for Naruto. For those that didn't understand what I was trying to say, there's a clockwise whirl spinning clockwise, a clockwise whirl spinning counterclockwise, a counterclockwise whirl spinning clockwise, and a counterclockwise whirl spinning counterclockwise. If your head hurt just by reading that, welcome to the club, laughing face. After Naruto completed the exercises, he was more than pleased with his progress in his chakra control. He may never actually get the control for the low-ranked jutsu, but he'd have more than enough for the big guns. Anko and Ryu spent a long time training Naruto as well as sparring together. Ryu and Naruto still couldn't understand why Anko sometimes blushed, instead passing it off as just being tired. Anko didn't actually bother to correct them either. It was a month later that Naruto was first allowed inside the forge as an assistant, after having memorized several, if not all, Theoretical knowledge about forging techniques. From alloys to styles to temperature control to forging techniques, whatever was about forging inside Ryu's rather large library, Naruto studied it. He knew he still had a long way to go before actually forging his own swords, so why not get an early start? Thankfully, Ryu's training regime of Doom R had helped Naruto immensely. Wearing several weight and restraint seals on him, as well as several straps of leather placed so that they limit his body, Naruto's physical abilities were increasing steadily. He may never become as physically strong as that insane green-clothed Junin, but he'd be strong in other areas as well, such as speed and ninjutsu. Naruto had long since accepted the fact that he would never be able to master all shinobi arts. He'd instead be an insanely powerful shinobi with certain strengths. Generalization wasn't for him. Heck, he could barely cast a couple of genjutsu. On the other hand, he was a master at detecting and dispelling them. When asked why he was pushed so much, even being forced to learn how several jutsu are performed without ever performing them, or having to fight several taijutsu styles, Ryu had cryptically answered, "It will help develop your Sharingan effect," without actually going into depth about it. Naruto was pretty sure he wasn't an Uchiha, or had Uchiha blood inside of him, so what was the Sharingan effect? It led to several attempts at discovering the truth, but Naruto could never get a straight answer. All he got was a reiteration of, "All good things come to those who wait." In Ryu's rather unique style, which means it involved bowls of ramen, swords and a few noogis. 2 months had passed since Anko started living with Naruto and Ryu. Naruto had spent several afternoons in quiet contemplation, searching for Kyuubi. After all, if he had the power, and the blame and responsibility that go with it, why shouldn't he use it? Not depend on it, of course, that would be just stupid. But as a trump card, one of the many he had. As Naruto went to the training grounds that morning, he saw Ryu already waiting for him with a serious look on his face. "Ahaya o Tuto. We have some things to discuss today. You have been wondering what the Sharingan effect is for some time now, correct?" Seeing Naruto nod, Ryu continued. "As you know, the Sharingan is a very powerful bloodline, a most useful tool. Of course some abuse it to the point of depending solely upon it, but that stupidity is outside our scope. You see, if you look at it, the Sharingan has several abilities that can be broken down to several different effects. First, and most obvious one, is the ability to perceive time differently, causing it to slow down in the user's perspective, increasing the reflexes dramatically. As a secondary effect, the tunnel vision caused by high-speed movement disappears. Then, we have the ability to predict the future, as some say, though I think it is mostly paying attention to the most minute motion of the enemy's body, allowing you to know what they are going to do before they do it, by virtue of micromovements, such as tensing the muscles." Naruto nodded. He had read all about the known Kekkei Genkei. Information is power and all that. Ryu continued in the same tone. Next we have the ability to see and copy any jutsu used, as apparently, the Sharingan grants the user eidetic memory. That way, someone with adequate control could copy any ninjutsu simply by viewing the hand seals and hearing the name. Lastly, we have the ability to break down any genjutsu, as well as place them via eye contact. With me so far, Otuto? Ryu got a nod and a questioning look. Well, you see, while useful, there are ways to gain the same, if not greater abilities via training. Once completed, these abilities consist the Sharingan effect. Of course you're wondering what I mean. Let me explain. The ability to perceive time differently can be accomplished through meditation, and a special branch called battle meditation. You will be learning them next year, as they take up too much time. Next we have reflexes and the lack of tunnel vision. I've started heavy speed training on you and even taught you the first steps to my own speed technique, Shunpo, flash step. Of course, it's going to take some time for you to perform it, but when you do, you'll force your body's reflexes to speed up, progressively eliminating the tunnel vision effect. Naruto almost jumped around at the prospect of learning Shunpo. He had seen Ryu use it a few times and he was stunned with the final speeds. Ryu would become almost invisible, attacking from any direction imaginable, and a few unimaginable ones, able to evade almost any blow, or attack from both left and right almost simultaneously. Naruto of course didn't jump around, knowing he'd just get noogied for doing it. Ryu smirked at seeing the blonde blob of energy contain himself. It had been very trying to teach him self-control. To gain the ability to copy any jutsu, I've started you on ninjutsu theory and application as well as study and analysis of hand seals. What you will learn will be a dream amongst dreams for Sharingan users. Instead of just copying a technique as it is performed, you will gain the ability to break it down to its basic components. In other words, while it will take you some time to analyze, break down and recreate the technique, making your version better. Why? Simply because even if an enemy skips out on a hand seal, or uses one-handed ones, you will be able to deduce the complete version by seeing the results or knowing of the jutsu. In the same way, you will later on be able to change a technique to suit you. For example, someone uses a raiden on you, but you are not good enough at it yet to use it as a raiden. You will learn how to break it down and recreate it as a futon or any other element you wish or need. The enemy spits a fireball, you send them a ball of compressed water. You will learn to use ninjutsu accurately and effectively, even if it's the first time and in heavy combat. Naruto stood gaping. He'd be able to do all of that? Aniki, are you sure about what you're saying? I mean, I've just started out on this path. You sure I can handle the responsibility of it? What if I lose control of Kyuubi? What if? Ah, shut up Gaki. Minato trusted you and Kushina chose you. You'll be fine. If there's anyone that can hold Le Grande Furball back, that's you. Naruto laughed silently. Yeah, I guess you're right Ani-sensei. That's why all. Naruto was interrupted by a poof of smoke as a Hengid Kage Bunshin revealed himself behind Ryu and attempted to impale him. Ryu dodged to the side, causing the clone to stumble forward. Naruto dashed forward, used the falling clone as a springboard and launched himself at Ryu while drawing his swords for a double strike. Ryu jumped back to dodge, but had to move again as the first clone used his right hand to twist himself an inch from the ground, leaving his left arm to throw a few senbon needles at Naruto's head, knowing that Naruto would miss and leave Ryu open for attack. As the senbon flew by Ryu's head, he noticed there were wires wrapped around the middle. The clone's hand twitched and they tried to wrap themselves around Ryu. The slightly green coloration of the senbon revealed them to be poisonous to the Dragon Rider. Ryu quickly drew his swords and moved them to block Naruto's incoming swords. As he sent them to the side, he quickly dodged to the side and made a slow swipe with his swords, cutting off Naruto's legs. It was not to be however, as the clone quickly substituted himself with the original and was dispelled. Ryu's eyes widened as Naruto's blades touched his throat. I win Aniki. Ryu's surprised look turned to a grin as he twitched his left sword. Naruto felt some pressure at what differentiates men from women. I think not Otuto. I think it's a draw. Good work with the clone. Even though I had to limit myself to Chunin's strength, it's very good for someone your age and training time. Naruto grinned. It was nice having someone tell you you're good. Though he also realized that whenever Ryu complimented him on doing something well, he also not only increased his criteria, but also gave him much more to do. Naruto had slowly been getting to know Anko as well. It took a few talks and some tips on the best places to peep on Ryu when he goes bathing, but Anko spoke to Naruto about her past a bit. Naruto of course was more than a bit pissed off about the treatment the village had given her. He could understand his own troubles, seeing as he was a constant reminder of what the people had lost, like a festering wound that never healed, but Anko was a whole different story. To shun her, even a bit, because she was the former apprentice of Orochimaru. Well, it was a bit aggravating for the blonde. In the last 2 months, Naruto had began helping his Aniki in the forge. Ryu would go to Konoha every week and buy a large amount of various metals. Naruto helped Ryu in the forging to increase his own endurance as well as learn firsthand how something is forged. Then, he would get the lower grade metals and try to forge something of his own. Naruto's inventive mind began working overtime, thinking up various gadgets he could make and use. His room's desk was filled with numerous scrolls detailing Naruto's insane ideas and projects. Being a beginner in Fuinjutsu, and just having learned how to make a sealing scroll, Naruto always had a scroll on him with writing supplies in case he had an idea. So far he had started up ideas for quick release mechanisms stored in his bracers to quickly draw a weapon. Ryu's books on mechanics and engineering also helped Naruto create the blueprints for various ammunitions, such as senbon, kunai or explosive notes or smoke bombs. Naruto had no illusions that he'd get to make them on his own, but if he could make the blueprints and then give them to an engineer of sufficient skill, then maybe he could make it work. Time progressed slowly for the blonde Jinchuriki. Day in, day out, he would practice his sword arts, learning more and more about the Uzumaki clan, and especially the warriors of the Uzumaki clan, the much-dreaded Uzumaki no Kenshin. A group of warriors that could fight on par with the strongest of enemies, never wavering or retreating in the field of battle. Naruto, too, wanted to be a part of that group, but he knew he wasn't nearly at the level reacquired. He had learned patience though. He would wait until the time was ripe to lay claim to his heritage. Naruto's training had increased even more after he learned of the Sharingan effect. He pushed his body to the limits, and often enough even beyond that. Due to Kyuubi's chakra being able to heal Naruto, he could afford to push himself beyond the edge, knowing that the next day he'd be fine. Maybe a little sore, but fine. Knowing that a swordmaster without his swords would be a sitting duck, Naruto asked Anko to help him with his taijutsu, seeing as how the Tokubetsu Junin was very good at it, and her hits hurt a lot less than Ryu's. In the same manner, he had started learning how to use Anko's favored fighting style, Tukanai held in reverse, a bastardized but very, very effective version of the Washi no Kame. Combined with a scroll on his mother's taijutsu style, Rasengan, or spiral fist, he knew that, while he would never be a taijutsu specialist, he'd be more than able to hold his own. The Rasengan depended on a very simple, yet effective rule: acceleration. High speed meant greater force, therefore increasing the damage dealt with every hit, not to mention it would be easier to land it in the first place. Because the room for the necessary acceleration wasn't readily available in a serious fight, the Uzumaki clan devised a way to make the most out of a small amount of room. Namely, rotation. By rotating in place, the user can increase the velocity of his attacks, while also maintaining an adequate amount of defense. The basic stance had the user stand with the left leg in front, body turned to the right. The left hand was placed in front, making a curve as if embracing someone. The right hand was kept in the same way but behind the body, concealing it. The user could spin in any direction, depending on what he wanted to do, lashing out faster and faster in a small room, cutting down his enemy's evasive maneuvers. Of course, like all styles, it had its drawbacks. First of all, the user couldn't easily charge an enemy, as the style wasn't geared for such motions. Similarly, it was focused more on taking down a single opponent, as opposed to fighting multiple enemies. However, it was a very explosive and effective style, one that definitely suited Naruto. Of course, when he asked why to him it seemed incomplete, Ryu answered that the Uzumaki clan did that on purpose so that every warrior would take it and improve on it in his own unique way. Naruto's anti-genjutsu training was going well too, helping him at least somewhat cover up his greatest problem. Of course, he wasn't that good at detecting them, unless they were very blatant, but he sure as hell could break them. The concentrated chakra burst he could release at any time, with barely any focus into it, was more than enough to shatter them. In the same sense, Naruto's studies at ninjutsu were progressing well. He still had to learn a single jutsu, but Ryu had been adamant on acquiring a good degree of control first. As the days and weeks progressed, Naruto had learned how to expel raw, solid bursts of chakra from his hands and feet. Apart from being very dangerous in case they hit someone, it also helped him move very quickly, as the resulting explosions shockwave blasted Naruto off in high speeds. Ryu gave a pleased smile when he saw it. The next day he took Naruto aside. "Alright Naruto, time to up the ante a bit. As you know, you can blast raw chakra from your hands and feet. Now, I may not have said much at that time, but you have completed another step for the Shunpo. The Shunpo depends on three aspects: precision, power and resistance. You have completed precision by learning to perfectly control massive amounts of chakra without losing control. That in turn led you to completing power, the burst of chakra that blasts you forward. Last is resistance, and by that I mean the resistance of the air around us." Naruto nodded and added his 2 cents. "Yeah, I kinda noticed that too. Every time I blast off, I feel an immense pressure on my chest and I'm not near the speed you go with the complete version. The faster you go, the greater the pressure, so, if I go as fast as you do, it would crush me, right?" Ryu smiled, pleased at the intelligence Naruto was finally showing. "That is correct. Your body instinctively limits the amount of chakra sent for the speed burst so you don't kill yourself, so that's something you're gonna have to fix. On the other hand, you also have to reduce the wind's resistance, which is the hardest part. You will have to experiment with ways to do that. Find your own answer to the question, you know? I could tell you how I do it, but I think that it's something you're going to have to learn for yourself. After all, not everything works for everyone. Take your time thinking it through and use your clones to test it. Oh, and for the record, you're using too much chakra, about 10 times the needed. After all, once you eliminate the problem of the wind's resistance, your speed will increase many times over. Naruto nodded, already trying to think of a way to bypassing the wind's resistance. However, as much as he thought about it at that time, he couldn't find an easily applied way for it. As for the more complicated ways, they depended on seals that would do the work for him. However, he had neither the resources nor the knowledge with which to perform said task. Deciding to solve it another day, he turned on his heel and left, but not before throwing a shuriken, cutting a concealed wired, which in turn activated a hidden trap that sent a barrage of kunai at Ryu. Or where Ryu would be sitting if he didn't quickly shunshin away. The blonde swordman worked tirelessly, striving to become stronger. He would be the first to wake up and the last to go to sleep. He pushed and pushed himself, often getting sprains and torn muscles for his troubles. But, regardless of it all, he persevered. His experiments on eliminating the wind's resistance for the shunpo were also going well. Having brainstormed a few ideas, he had his clones practice each until he'd get it as far as possible. While alone the ideas didn't work that well, Naruto was putting together all he acquired from practicing them, combining them into a perfected final result. However, he still had to complete it. Around that time, Naruto also took a more active part in the forge, learning how to forge his own shuriken and kunai. He started small, but progressed very well. Now, his work, while by far not the best, was good enough to be used or sold. Every kunai and shuriken on his person was made by himself. To Naruto, each and every item he forged was unique, each made in its own special way. He could instantly tell which shuriken or kunai he picked out of his pouch. Anko laughed when Naruto shared it with her, but quickly told him that it's only normal when someone makes something that he becomes attached to it. In return for her words, he gave her a few of his best throwing knives, razor-sharp dual-edged blades perfectly balanced for throwing. When questioned about their quality, he quickly proved how sharp they were by chucking a few of them right through a target dummy. It was the final months of his year alone, or mostly alone, with Ryu that the Anbu captain decided to start teaching ninjutsu to Naruto. Having judged him to have enough presence of mind, experience and, of course, chakra control, he began with easy techniques to get him acclimated. Of course, since wind was Naruto's affinity, he focused on it by teaching him how to control it properly. Naruto himself started adapting the jutsu for his own uses, altering them and shifting them to better suit his style. He started with Futon, Tappa, wind style, breakthrough, the young brother of Daitappa, a technique that created enough power to deflect incoming shuriken but not much else. On the other hand, it was easy for Naruto to learn how to use it without hand seals, making it a very effective defense against ranged attacks. On it he based a new technique, Futon Kekai, Kei's Dumyu, wind barrier, wind dome, a defensive jutsu that made a dome formed by powerful wind gales. Building on the Tappa and later the Daitappa, Naruto leaned the dreaded Kamaitachi no Jutsu, sickle weasel, wind blade technique, adapting it for use with his swords by condensing the effects into the small width of a sword, as opposed to the wide area attack of a fan. Of course the bladed winds tended to veer out from the tip of the blade, progressively increasing the area of effect, but it was still much more concentrated than a fan's random cuts. Ryu foresaw a lot of trouble for his adopted little brother, so he sought to teach him even more about elemental manipulation. According to him, everyone had the power to gain an affinity for every element. However, seeing as how every elemental affinity, awakened, made it harder to learn another, more so if it is an opposing affinity, learning how to use all elemental affinities would be a pipe dream. Even so, going by the saying of, aim for the sun, so even if you miss you will land among the stars, Ryu started training Naruto on the usage of the other offensive elements, starting with fire. The over-exuberant blonde found it relatively easy to link with the element of fire, his explosive and determined personality resonating with the power within the fire's core. Using that as a basis, Ryu started teaching Naruto how to perform elemental combinations, first by using clones and then, progressively eliminating them as well. It was a slow-going project, especially since, unlike wind, Naruto hadn't mastered fire, but the progress was there. Now, their fights were more like elegant, bladed dances than spars, causing sparks to fly around as the blades clashed again and again. Their capabilities urged even Anko to pick up a kodachi and learn to use it, at least somewhat. Naruto's original Kenjutsu style, Kitsune no Kame, was going very well too, upping the maximum strikes to Rokubi, an attack that left even Anko reeling back. It was finally the end of the summer for Naruto and the beginning of another year inside Konoha, or well, mostly inside Konoha. Ryu's home would always be open to him and he didn't have to stay cooped up inside his little crappy apartment now. Naruto smirked victoriously as he marched towards Konoha's gates. The guards saw a tall for his age child with spiky blonde hair and startling blue eyes walk towards them calmly. He wore black trousers lined with blood red and covered with pockets for easy retrieval of items. On each side he had a belt and leg pouch, obviously carrying a lot of combat equipment. On his feet, steel-toed black leather boots made a distinct sound as they casually strode towards Konoha. On his chest is a black shirt with a roaring fox head in red, while a pair of sheathed blades protruded from behind. A long scarf made of 3 colored linen clothes, one for each color, red, yellow and orange, covered his face while also trailing behind him. The mysterious person walked casually through the gate, not even sparing the guards a single glance. As soon as he was inside, he released a small burst of chakra and vanished mid-step in a small swirl of wind and leaves. The Anbu that watched the scene were even more stumped as they couldn't track the mysterious strand. It was as if he knew what they would do before they even thought about it. Outside the Hokage's office, a shinobi, for it had to be one judging by looks alone, materialized. He glanced calmly at the secretary and asked in a muffled, quiet voice, "Is the Hokage inside?" The secretary blushed a bit at the voice. Heck, if he was a few years older she might have tried dating him. Such calm voice, gentle eyes and muscled body. Stopping the fangirlish squeal that threatened to come out of her throat using nothing but sheer professionalism, she nodded. Before she had time to ask what he wanted or tell him to wait for an audience, she had the oddest feeling. Those gentle eyes turned evilly mischievous, reminding her of a certain someone. Before she could gather her bearings, the mysterious shinobi raised his leg and kicked the door. Hiruzen Sarutobi has having one of his rare breaks from the dreaded paperwork. He had the strangest feeling of foreboding as an oddly familiar chakra, that he couldn't exactly place however, flickered outside his office. The next thing he knew was that one of his doors was coming right at his desk and he had to dodge quickly. A man, no a teenager, strode casually in, as if he didn't just blast a door to pieces. Sandame's eyes widened as he realized who it was, but before he had time to react, his hidden Anbu guards appeared to take down the offender. As the two ninjutsu made to strike the mysterious person, the edges of his eyes lifted, indicating he was smiling, but there was nothing warm or nice about that smile. Instead, the figure's hands moved amazingly fast and caught the blades between the pointer and the thumb, easily holding them in place. Before the surprised Anbu had time to react, another, exactly the same, figure appeared in front of the pair of Anbu, arms to the side with a pair of short, curved blades held in reverse. Which meant that the blades' edges were placed comfortably, for the trespasser at least, on the two Anbu's necks. Sarutobi coughed a bit and spoke calmly. "I would appreciate it if you didn't kill my Anbu, you know." The figure snorted, as if fitting it incredibly funny before snapping the blades in half. The Anbu just blinked at the now broken swords they held. A discreet motion of the cage's hands dismissed them before they could speak however. Sarutobi sighed. It was such a good day too. "You're always causing so much trouble, aren't you, Naruto-kun?" Naruto chuckled. "I wouldn't be my mother's son if I wasn't now, would I? Besides, you've done much worse, old monkey." Sarutobi chuckled a bit, relieved to see that at least most of Naruto hadn't changed. "I guess that's true. So, how have you been, my boy?" Naruto smirked and lowered his scarf, letting the freaked-out secretary confirm the fact that she had just blushed at Naruto of all people. "Couldn't be better, old man. Now, I guess we have a lot to talk about. After all, I haven't forgiven nor forgotten your failings." At the end of the sentence, Naruto's voice turned ice cold, sending chills down Sarutobi's spine. He was glad to have followed Ryu's advice about praying. Naruto had more than enough reason to do whatever he wanted to him. Sarutobi blinked as he took in the changes that Naruto had made, both on the outside and the inside. Being the legendary ninja that he was, Sarutobi saw a lot of things with just that one glance. It wasn't just the change of clothes, though that in and of itself spoke volumes about Naruto. The fact that Naruto had the symbol of a fox of all things on his shirt, proudly displayed before all, meant many things about Naruto. To Sarutobi's eyes, the young man had learned of his burden and, not only he didn't hate having to carry it, but he had accepted and understood it. Something that even shinobi 3 times his age couldn't do. But most importantly, it was Naruto's eyes that startled Sarutobi. Before, the cerulean eyes were filled with stubborn determination and zealous courage. But now they revealed a person truly in tune with himself, a person that, not only is confident but most importantly in control. In control of himself, his body, his movements, his emotions, his mind, his burden. To Sarutobi's trained eye, the Naruto of before had a small sliver of fear hidden behind walls and masks of courage and determination. The Naruto of now was different. He was confident, calm, alert. Sarutobi sighed. He was going to get a headache, he was sure of it now. So, what did you learn in this past year, Naruto-kun? Naruto smiled as he hid his face with his scarf, much like another ninja the cage knew. Oh, you know, this and that. A little bit of the other and a small dash of that one. The sarcasm in Naruto's words was so thick you could cut it with a kunai, and Sarutobi's right eye twitched. I would like a bit more detail, Naruto-kun. Naruto's eyes froze, startling the old man. Very well, Hokage-sama. I learned kenjutsu, taijutsu, poisons and ninjutsu. Also, I learned a few things about seals, but I'm more a son of my mother than my father, if you get the point. Sarutobi sighed again. It was painfully obvious that Naruto didn't want to say anything more. Very well, Naruto-kun. Go to the academy and present yourself to an Amino Uruka or what your class is. And I hope you can forgive this old man someday. Naruto nodded and began walking out the door. Just as he exited, he looked back and spoke with chuckle. I may have forgiven you already, old man. I just don't trust you anymore. But to show no hard feelings exist, why don't you use Kage Bunshin for that paperwork? It sure helped me a lot. Cackling like a maniac at the Sandame's stunned face, Naruto walked off, listening to the cries of baka baka baka. The shinobi entering the Hokage tower were treated to the sight of an intimidating-looking man exiting the tower laughing like a maniac. When however they tried to grab him, he would disappear a split second before they would touch him and reappear a step ahead, his cackle unchanged. The person made a few steps outside the immediate area of the tower, the Anbu noticing it was exactly the line where the anti-shunshin seals ended, before vanishing without a single trace. Many shinobi had the same thought going through their minds. What the fuck was that? Naruto reappeared outside the academy. It was only a year, but to him it felt like a lifetime. Looking around, he saw several familiar faces. Of course, not one of them looked upon him like they recognized him. They looked at him with curiosity, and some girls with that freaky expression they had when they looked at Sasuke. Shrugging his shoulders at his continuing failure to understand women and their speed at changing moods and/or targets of said moods, Naruto made his way inside. Moving as silently as possible, which was very silent indeed, and reducing his presence to the minimum possible, Naruto enjoyed the looks of the future ninja. To them he seemed ephemeral, almost as if they could see through him. It was part of Anko's teachings. By reducing one's presence at a high degree, masters of the art could erase their very presence from a room or even the memory of someone seeing them. Of course, someone at Naruto's level couldn't do it at that level yet, if ever, due to his power, not to mention that those perceptive enough would still notice him, but it was really fun watching people trying to follow his movement and failing. Uruka was having an average day. Well, if by average you mean having to shout to a bunch of brats with no appreciation for the power of knowledge or what it meant to have to fight with your mind instead of your fists for once. He sighed. Sometimes he really wished Mizuki would have passed that test instead of himself. Getting ready to start another lecture, he heard a knock on the door. Through the door came a person. He couldn't really tell if he was just tall for a kid or short for a man though. Spiky blonde hair, cerulean blue eyes and an attire that, quite frankly, creeped him out. It was an imposing figure. A soft voice came from the figure, making many girls look between him and Sasuke as if they were comparing each other. Are you Yunino Iruka-san? Iruka was startled by the question but answered nonetheless. Hi, that would be me. And you are? The person's eyes lifted a bit, indicating a smile while they twinkled with something between glee and mischief. Simply your new student that Hokage-sama had been talking about. Name's Naruto, just Naruto for now. Iruka nodded, indeed there was such a person. Very well, you may seat between Amy and Ino, seeing as it's the only free seat. Of course there was a reason why that seat was open and the man pitied Naruto for it. Naruto made his way there but saw that both ways to the seat were taken and neither girl was moving to his seat. Both, however, seemed to be in a contest to make room for him to pass through, just enough room so he'd have to rub himself on them. Smirking at the low-level scheme, at least compared to Anko. In response he placed one hand in front of his seat and, with notable ease, lifted himself up in a one-handed handstand, rotated himself in the air and simply fell just right into his seat. The two girls next to him looked at him with something between awe and disappointment. Without looking a breath, Naruto took a scroll from a pocket too small to hold it without a bulge, unraveled it and with practiced ease unsealed a few books and scrolls. Before anyone had time to comment on it, he had placed the scroll back and murmured, "Ah, the wonders of sealing." Iruka shook his head to get back to reality and with a shout he got back to teaching his class. A few minutes later he had to shout again as most his class was ignoring him. Most since, Sakura was, as always, paying rapt attention while the new kid was busy taking notes. Curious about what the new student was writing about so diligently, and inwardly pleased that the people who were paying attention had doubled, Iruka leaned over to read the scroll. And had his jaw drop. Instead of notes about the lesson, there were weird designs of, what he thought were, mechanical contraptions of some kind. Angered that his hopes were dashed so brutally, Iruka threw his chalk at Naruto. Without giving any sign of recognition, Naruto's hand blurred as the chalk was about to hit him. Iruka noticed that the chalk was now on the desk, next to the scroll while Naruto hadn't even stopped writing. Finishing his notes, Naruto looked at Iruka with a bored glare. What was that about, sensei? Iruka saw red. What was that about? It was about you ignoring my lesson. Naruto chuckled a bit and interrupted his sensei. Just like 95% of the class, sensei. Besides, unlike them, I have already learned all of that. Iruka stared disbelievingly at his student. Well, if that's the case, then prove it. His expectations of calling a bluff were dashed as Naruto simply smiled and slid down under his desk in a display of contortion. He then motioned Iruka to the side, walked to the blackboard and started teaching. It took enough time for Iruka to recover that Naruto managed to teach the entire chapter in half the time Iruka did. Of course that might have been due to the fact that Naruto didn't react to the students not paying attention. Or his body didn't. That was because when someone was either ready to make a break for it, Kiba Iruka noted, or tried to sleep, such as Shikamaru, Naruto would blast them with a burst of killing intent. Of course, it wasn't so much, but to people that never experienced it, Naruto's sickly sweet eye smile, coupled with a healthy dose of ki. It was more than enough to shock them back into obedience. The lesson over, Iruka dismissed the class but kept Naruto in. Alright Naruto, please explain to me what the heck you did back then. Naruto smiled again. Simple really. I left it all in their imagination. Shikamaru and Kiba are from ninja families. As such they have heard more about torture than you ever spoke about in here. If they are unlucky enough, they may have even seen its after effects on a family member. All I did was project their subconscious idea of a torture expert. Sickly sweet smile laced with too much killer intent, for them at least. In other words, someone who enjoyed doing what they thought I would do to them. As a result, to them, I was an expert that wouldn't hesitate to torture them, regardless of being in this class or not. Well, subconsciously they thought that. Their conscious mind justified it by linking it with my intimidating appearance. Anything else? Iruka rubbed his temples. That was one heck of a headache coming. Yeah, you already knew everything, so why bother coming here? Iruka regretted that question almost as soon as he made it, seeing the haunted eyes of Naruto. Did you know, sensei, how they break people in torture interrogation? It's not just the pain. Pain is temporary, even if the scars remain forever. No, they break people with a fear second only to the fear of oblivion. The fear of loneliness. Death, if you think about it, isn't all that scary. After all, we will all die at some point. In some cases even, it is a release. So, there is no fear of death in a captive. Fear of oblivion though. Of never being remembered, of being forgotten for all of time, as if you never even existed. Now that's a whole different thing. Second to that fear is loneliness. The fear that you have no one left for you, no one to care or look at you with sympathy and care, no one to share your burdens or hold you when you break down in sorrow. Yes, these are the two greatest fears a shinobi must overcome. I'm here because I have always been alone. Well, with the exception of the past year, but that's a different matter. By making bonds with people here, I won't be alone any longer. Understand now, sensei? Iruka nodded solemnly. He understood. He too was alone, especially after the Kyuubi's attack. Yeah, I guess I do. Now go out and make these bonds, Naruto. Naruto smiled, the depressing atmosphere gone in an instant. Thanks for understanding, sensei. See you later. Only when he was alone did things click into Iruka's mind. Blonde hair and blue eyes. Naruto was really Uzumaki Naruto, the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. Then, as his anger began growing, he remembered both Sandame's and Naruto's words. He is more like you than you know, Iruka. He has always been alone, denied of everything you consider normal, denied of family on the very day he was born, denied of friends on the first day I foolishly told them the truth, denied of everything important in this life. Don't forget that, Iruka. Everything that you consider standard in your life, Naruto had to work immensely to just see or touch once. Besides, don't you trust Yondaimi's skill? Or Jiraiya's? I have always been alone. Well, with the exception of the past year. Did you know how they break people in torture interrogation? That break people with a fear second only to the fear of oblivion. The fear of loneliness. Iruka looked at the mirror and saw himself staring back at him disgusted. Was Naruto really hated that much? Had he really suffered that much? In the end, could he stand being alone for so long? Iruka thanked Kami that he never had to find out. Then cursed Kami that a mere boy, had to. Outside, Naruto was sitting concealed in a tree, enjoying the bento he again pulled out of a random pocket when he saw something as funny as it was sad. Sasuke was running away from a bunch of his fangirls. Deciding to do something about it, he stuffed his bento back into his pocket and disappeared with a shunshin. As Sasuke was running away from his rabid fangirls, he made a left turn, hoping to loose them, when suddenly a hand clamped over his mouth. An arm grabbed him from the ways and pulled him in some bushes. Before he had time to consider it, a clone of himself leapt out of the bush and started running away in the same direction Sasuke originally was. Slowly the hand let Sasuke go and he turned to see his savior, finding him to be the new kid. Nodding in thanks, Sasuke made to leave, only for the hand to grab him from the shoulder. Then the new kid pointed towards a tree. Sasuke was surprised to see several kunai embedded on the trunk. Naruto then proceeded to use the kunai as handholds to climb up the tree quickly, motioning Sasuke to follow. Once both were up, Sasuke saw Naruto pull a bunch of wires, causing the kunai to be dislodged off the trunk before reeling them back and placing them in another pocket. Without losing his breath, Naruto took out his previous bento and a second one, handing it over to Sasuke. The two ate in silence, each for his own reasons. After eating was over, Sasuke leapt off the tree and walked away, hands in his pockets. A few steps later, he stopped, turned to Naruto and muttered, "Thanks." Naruto chuckled, once a brooder, always a brooder. A few moments later he too leapt off, making his way around the building. He came upon an interesting sight. Amy and Ino were fighting, or more like a catfight. Resisting the thoughts Anko so expertly implanted into his mind, Naruto made his way there calmly, listening to the two girls disagreeing. "Well, he's mine. He looked at me first. Only because of you, fat ass. He likes me more." "Oh yeah, and where did you get that idea? He didn't even look at you. He smiled at me though." "Yeah, but he has blonde hair making him your cousin and that's sick." Deciding to stop the girls before they gave a free show to everyone, Naruto stepped forward. "You shouldn't be fighting, you know, frowns will mar your beautiful faces." Smiling his disarmingly happy smile, and thanking Kami for that book on charming women, as well as Anko's advice on how to handle them, Naruto watched as the girls' anger deflated. Meanwhile the two girls stood in stunned stupor as Naruto walked away, only his last three words repeating themselves on their minds. "Kaya." Their fangirlish squeal would be heard for a long way. Hearing it, Sasuke stood upright and dashed off, hoping to run into Naruto or Iruka, so they would protect him. Unfortunately, his sudden movements notified his fan club, which began its classic, Sasuke-kun hunt. Sasuke for his part ran as fast as he could, hoping to escape his fangirls. Dashing for the class, he saw Naruto heading back in. Yelling, in his head at least, "Safe!" Sasuke made a last dash towards the new kid. Naruto heard the rumbling of feet behind him and looked back to see Sasuke dashing towards him, obviously seeking to escape them. Calculating the time it would take for Sasuke to get to him, Naruto started using hand seals in a rapid pace. Just as Sasuke moved past Naruto and the fangirls almost leapt over said boy, Naruto's jutsu activated. Futon Kekai, K's Dumyu. Wind Style Barrier. Wind Dome. Winds perked up around Naruto, creating a barrier of wind powerful enough to scatter the airborne fangirls, an easy feat really since there is no traction in the air. Naruto turned at Sasuke with his eyes indicating his smiling face. "You okay there, Sasuke? They didn't rape you or anything?" Sasuke sighed in relief. "No, thankfully I got to you just in time." "Thanks again, Naruto." The fangirls were stumped. For so long they had only gotten dismissals and grunts. And this new kid, who didn't even have a last name, managed to get that much out of their Sasuke-kun. Naruto waved off Sasuke. "Meh, think nothing of it. Bros before hoes and all that crap, you know?" Sasuke, against his usual behavior, snickered for but a second. "Yeah, I know. I don't suppose you can move with this jutsu?" Naruto kept ignoring the fangirls. "Why wouldn't I? It's wind, man, not stone or anything else. Now let's get going. Class is starting." The bell rang right then. "See?" Sasuke nodded and walked alongside Naruto, as if he was his lifeline, which for the young Uchiha, he was. Naruto, could you teach me this jutsu?" Another shock for the girls and a surprised look from Naruto. "I'd ask why, but I already know. I would teach you, but I can't." Sasuke's turn to be surprised. Again, "Why?" Naruto shrugged his shoulders. "Simple, because you're an Uchiha." Sasuke stopped walking with a stunned face before frowning. "What does that have to do with anything?" Naruto sighed. "Think about it, Sasuke. What are the Uchiha clan famous for, apart from your dojutsu?" "That's right, Kaiden Jutsu. It's in your blood, giving you a fire affinity." Sasuke raised an eyebrow, curious more than angered. "So?" Naruto sighed, but remembered that no one here knew had read all these books about chakra manipulation. Wind is opposed to fire, meaning that your natural element will interfere with the jutsu. At best, it would just make a warm gust of air and at worst, burn your lungs or skin. That made Sasuke reconsider. However, Sasuke's head perked up. If you master fire manipulation, not only will your Kaiden become all the better for it, while also allowing you to learn more, but it will also let you safely use Futon Jutsu, as you will be in control over the element of fire. Sasuke nodded his head, understanding what Naruto meant. That didn't mean he had to not having such a useful technique. It really was a good technique, being able to shield him from all these fangirls. "So, do you know how to master that fire manipulation thing?" Naruto chuckled a bit. "Yeah, I know a few things. I started that out too, since fire works real good with my natural element, wind. I'm nowhere near finished though. Let's see. First step. Ah yes, I think I remember it, here catch." Naruto took out a scroll from a seemingly empty pocket. "Try to use your chakra to burn the parchment. It's easy for paper to catch on fire, so it won't need much chakra, but it needs quite a bit of focus. Oh, and don't worry about getting it at first. Elemental manipulation is a Junin skill that takes years to learn for most." Instead of a disheartened sigh though, Sasuke gave a determined grunt of acknowledgement and pocketed the scroll. The next hour was boring for everyone but Naruto, who was constantly trying to defend himself from his two fangirls that were, incidentally, seated at each side of him. At least Sasuke understood his pain and suffering, as indicated by the pitying glance sent his way. When the bell rang, Naruto was the first to run off, using his much superior speed to escape the kunoichi's grasp. Sitting on a tree, he breathed out. Never thought I'd lose them. What the hell do they feed girls these days?" Sasuke's voice came from the ground, as he was making his way up. "Do you really want to know?" Naruto chuckled and shook his head. They both sat in comfortable silence as Sasuke got down to trying to burn the scroll. It proved to be frustrating, stubborn in its refusal though, but he did make the edges curl a bit. According to Naruto, that was more than he had done when he first started. Of course, Sasuke wouldn't for the longest time know the fact that Naruto used his clones to complete that step in a few days. When the break was over, both boys made their way to the training grounds, where they would be tested in the physical aspects of being a ninja by their second teacher, Toji Mizuki. When Naruto got there, he met a cold glare in the eyes of his would-be teacher and inwardly cursed. Mizuki turned to his class. "Alright, since we have a new guy, I guess it's time to tell us a few things about your skills." Naruto sighed. "I assure you I'm good enough. I know this and that with a little bit of the other, you know?" The class chuckled inwardly at Mizuki's red face. Naruto could rile up the man by doing absolutely nothing. "Well then, I suppose these swords are just for show then?" Naruto's eyes narrowed with anger, but he didn't rise to the bait. "I just don't think things here are serious enough to warrant me drawing them out. But since you asked oh so kindly, I am a master swordsman." Mizuki snorted in disbelief, followed by Sasuke's fangirls. Sasuke though blinked in surprise. Mizuki's voice came again. "Well, we don't need no damn samurai here last." Out of the entire class, only 2 people realized that this was a mistake. Sasuke and Hinata. Naruto just gritted his teeth, but stayed silent. Revenge is a dish best served cold, as Anko had taught him. After an easy, for Naruto that is, gauntlet run, it was time for sparring. Everyone got paired with someone, everyone but Naruto. "Sensei, where is my pair for the spar?" Mizuki sneered. "Well, we don't have an extra student, so it seems you failed this one." This last statement caused many wide eyes from the students and a positively evil smirk on Naruto. A smirk soon copied by Sasuke. "But sensei, you are wrong. There is someone that hasn't been fighting." Mizuki looked surprised. "Oh yeah, and who is that doby?" Naruto smirked and pointed at Mizuki. "You. Oh, and I assure you, there is no doby in here." Mizuki laughed. "Alright everyone stop. It seems Doby here has offered to show you how strong a Chunin is. Make a circle and watch closely as I show you how to properly use the academy style." Naruto's grin only widened at the attitude while Sasuke muttered, "Baka-sensei, you shouldn't have done that, he's far from weak." Mizuki laughed some more as he saw Naruto's stance. "What's that supposed to be, Doby? This isn't a dancing class." Naruto just smirked. This is my mother's taijutsu style, Rasengan. As for dancing, well, high-level fights can be linked to a dance, can't they?" Mizuki, having enough, fell into his stance and had a student count down for the start of the spar. For all his training he wouldn't know what hit him as soon as the kid counted 3. Naruto dashed forward, blurring to all from his speed. Appearing in front of a surprised Mizuki, he lashed out with a sweep of his right leg, tripping him. Before he had time to reach the ground though, Naruto's spin brought first his left elbow and then his right fist right into Mizuki's ribcage, breaking 2 ribs from the force exerted. The spin continued with Naruto lashing out with a rising right kick, causing Mizuki's body to bend in an unhealthy degree before rising up from the force of the kick. As the spin came to an abrupt stop, Naruto's entire kinetic force was transferred to his raised right fist, as it came down with immense force, slamming itself on Mizuki's solar plexus, planting him to the ground. Not half a second later, Naruto had his knee on Mizuki's chest with a kunai on his left hand, not an inch away from his throat. Mizuki twitched. He then let out a groan in pain. Naruto for his part, got up and removed imaginary dust from his shirt before walking back next to Sasuke. For not the first time that day, many people would simultaneously ask themselves the same thing. What the fuck was that? Sasuke just smirked. That was cool, but you shouldn't rest. He's gonna be pissed when he comes to. Besides, now, we're rivals. Naruto nodded, a smile on his face. Both boys stuck their hands out in a mutual agreement. Hinata, having realized who Naruto is, smiled gently at him. Who said the Byakugan wasn't useful? She had to really try to stifle the gasp of surprise when he found out who he was. Imagine Hinata's surprise when Naruto turned and winked at her before mouthing, "Good luck." Unfortunately, Hinata wouldn't make use of that good luck as she instantly turned red and faded, missing her spar. Naruto had to reactivate his K's Dunyu technique to avoid getting swamped by a few fangirls. He only deactivated to let Sasuke in and out of the dome. though he made sure to send a bit of ki towards a few of the bolder fangirls that tried to ambush the Uchiha. Thankfully for both boys, the fangirls were too easily embarrassed to try and test the technique's resistance to bigger incoming objects. After all, it was made to deflect projectiles like shuriken and kunai, not rabid fangirls launching themselves at it in a desperate attempt to break through. Naruto once again thanked his mother for the teachings on how to condense his chakra. After the session was over, which was completed by a different teacher as Mizuki was taken to the hospital, Naruto walked with Sasuke to the Uchiha compound before leaving for home. The reason? Not only did Sasuke appreciate the presence of a person that could actually shut up, but he also kept the fangirls away. He'd have to learn how to use that fear-inducing gaze. It was a necessary skill for the Uchiha's continuing virginity. Naruto walked back home, a weird look on his face. Anko landed next to him and snaked her arm around his shoulders. "What's wrong, Gaki? Tell your white Oni-sama what's troubling you." Naruto let a chuckle. "It's women, Anko. I just can't seem to get any of them." Anko nodded her head sagely. "Me neither, Gaki, me neither." Naruto just looked at her, eyebrow raised. "You know that sounded completely wrong on so many levels, right?" Anko just laughed at him. "Of course I do, Gaki. But it isn't a lie now, is it?" And cackling like a maniac on speed, Anko made her way home followed by a chuckling Naruto. Naruto's time in the academy was fun. At least for him. To teachers, it was hell. The young swordmaster would use his enhanced skills to pull all kinds of pranks on those that were asking for it, without ever getting caught. Not only that, but Naruto's smartass responses and sarcastic answers had become a sort of running inside joke. Against the teachers, that is, as well as a legend. Some teachers had started going to temples more often in the vain hope that they would escape hell. A hell that would have them teach a class of Naruto's. Sasuke had also started changing, as he spent more time near Naruto. Not only did he speak more and sulk less, but he had also opened up to people, though he still disregarded fangirls. That was something that wouldn't change. Often, when Naruto pranked people, Sasuke could be seen in the background smirking, or in rare cases even chuckling at people's misfortunes. Contrary to people's expectations, Sasuke had really hit it off with the blonde swordsman, often seen enjoying a bento on top of a tree. Why a tree? Because it offered protection from fangirls, cool shade from the sun and a nice vantage point. If someone asked why Sasuke obviously respected Naruto, they would get a somewhat baffling answer. Sasuke, quite simply, knew power. He could feel that Naruto had immense amounts of it. Even though the blonde was a complete opposite of what Sasuke believed to be a ninja, he still had immense amounts of raw unadulterated power. Nothing could change or hide that fact. So, to Sasuke's own amazement, he began reconsidering his beliefs. Indeed, he had started remembering things his, then childish, mind had forgotten. A memory of his mother easily dodging a missed shuriken from Itachi when she entered completely silently into the latter's training grounds. The look on his father's face the few times that his mother really opposed something. The way she, a female Uchiha that presumably had no shinobi training, would always know where everyone was. No, Sasuke had forgotten these memories, not understanding their significance. Instead, he had followed his arrogant father's beliefs. And now, Naruto had come and shattered them. They were beliefs he had just accepted as the truth, much like any child accepts things told by its parents. Now, a blonde enigma had come and shattered them, forcing Sasuke to come up with his own ideas and beliefs. So, the beginning of Sasuke's change had began. Naruto had also tried approaching Hinata, seeing as she was the only girl in the class that wasn't a fangirl, though Naruto wasn't sure if it was just her shy nature that prevented that. Naruto had quickly noticed her blushes and constant fainting, something he used to credit to some mysterious sickness. Now, he knew that it was the result of extreme shyness combined with a huge crush. It seemed the Hyuga princess had had a tough life, needing someone in her life to provide her with some sort of stability. Naruto had vowed that if he ever found out who destroyed that girl's idea of self-worth, then that person would wish he were dead when Naruto was done with him. Just the thought of someone berating and belittling someone as inherently kind and sweet as Hinata. He didn't like it at all. Unfortunately, the girl would faint every time he so much as looked at her intensely, so approaching her was hard to say the least. So, a month passed, amongst a lot of laughter and training for the aspiring swordmaster. It was around that time as well that he learned his first, combat-viable, battle meditation. The meditation of the blade. The Uzumaki clan didn't just train their bodies, they also trained their minds, reaching a state of spatial, physical and spiritual awareness that few others could comprehend. They had spent a long time learning how to meditate and control themselves, creating several exercises. However, the effect of most wasn't combat-oriented, rather it was more focused on calming oneself and mind. Of all these meditative techniques, there were only 4 that were combat-relevant. The 3 intermediate meditations, the meditation of the blade, the meditation of the guard and the meditation of the hilt, each named after an integral part of a sword and each directed to a certain aspect of fighting, offense, defense and agility respectively. When an Uzumaki Kenshin would learn and master all 3, they were granted access to the final major meditation, the meditation of the sword, which increased all 3 aspects of fighting to tremendous levels, even though it tired the user very quickly. Thankfully, so far none had known of Naruto's real identity, few people being able to match the old, orange-covered, ADHD, Kyuubi no Gaki, Uzumaki with the new, intimidating, confident and skilled Naruto. Fewer people had actually bothered themselves enough to do it. Iruka never told a soul, knowing the treatment Naruto would receive, should he speak the truth, while Mizuki had been placed under blood oath to never speak the truth to anyone. Shikamaru and Shino on the other hand, had their suspicions but both knew better than to intrude into someone else's business. So they kept their opinions to themselves and Hinata knew better than to speak. After all, if Naruto hid his identity, then he probably had a reason to. After his humiliating defeat at the hands of a genin, Mizuki tried a rematch only once. As Naruto tried to perform the same combo on him, Mizuki felt very smug as he dodged it by leaping backwards. His smirk was wiped though in an instant, as Naruto used the kinetic force of his sweep to rotate himself even faster before switching legs and unleashing a bone-crunching mule kick right into Mizuki's jaw. Result: 5 stitches, broken nose, shattered jaw and several lost teeth. Wisely, Mizuki never opposed the blonde maelstrom. In any physical way that is. He still tried to put him down and mess up his taijutsu, but Naruto showed a very powerful ability to ignore him. Naruto met Sasuke, as usual, outside the latter's house in the Uchiha clan's compound. After a nod for a greeting, both quietly walked towards the academy, content with each other's presence. Their route today took them outside the Hyuga clan's compound, seeing as they had to change routes every day to avoid unnecessary fangirls trying to get them. As they walked by, they met Hinata who, in a rare moment of courage, didn't choose to run away in order to stalk Naruto, but walk along him. Both boys offered her a nod and a grunt for good morning. Neither boy was a morning type, so for them at that time, it was the equivalent of screaming about youth and some such stupid idea. In the other side of Konoha, Guy and Lee stood up ramrod straight as they looked around suspiciously. Both, to the amazement of their teammates, spoke in a quiet tone, unyouth senses tingling. The hug that followed as the pair decided to find the perpetrator gave even more nightmares to the 2 other genin of the team. The 3 academy students made their way to their class and sat down to their respective seats, Naruto and Sasuke getting a pair of earplugs in order to save themselves the abuse. Soon enough, a bunch of fangirls, chief amongst them Sakura and Ino, burst into the classroom, their screeching and squealing making several windows vibrate and nearly crack from the stress of the sound waves. After the noise calmed down, relatively that is, Iruka and Mizuki walked in, surprising the children. Naruto noticed that Mizuki had a weird look on his face, but he shrugged it off. Whether it was smugness or hate, he'd never know, considering how much he had messed up the man's face. Truly, chakra-powered kicks to the face leave very few things the same. Today, we'll be having a special day. It's a survival exercise. So, all of you can go home and pack with the necessities before meeting here in an hour. Those of you that don't have such items at home, the academy has spares you can use. Iruka declared, causing many to break in cheers before rushing out. His last comment was directed to the, not few, orphans of Konoha, but mostly to Naruto. He was surprised to see, however, that Naruto left with the others. Could it be the kid had someone to watch over him? He had said something about not being alone the past year. Naruto, Sasuke and Hinata met each other again outside the academy, or more like Hinata was wandering around aimlessly until Sasuke and Naruto caught up with her and managed to keep her with them. Once everyone had been gathered, the two teachers, Mizuki and Iruka, proceeded to explain the plan. The kids would break up in three-man cells and go to the predetermined areas of the forest. There, they would have to camp for a day, spend the night and either avoid or fend off a mock ambush by the teachers. Naruto went and picked up a number which, incidentally, sent him and his team the furthest away from every other group. Though Naruto hid a smirk at realizing the grounds were the closest to his home. When Naruto returned to the blushing heiress and silent avenger, he had to open a way with his K's Dumyu, as Sasuke was being swarmed by fangirls. Sasuke allowed a small smile as Naruto approached him and with a quick dash, grabbed Hinata and rushed to the protection of the blonde's jutsu. As Mizuki saw the team form, he frowned. He went up to Sasuke and spoke to him. "Sasuke-kun, maybe we should choose another team for you. After all, rabble like that." Here, Mizuki was interrupted by a murmur of, "Rabble that can kick your ass though. Aren't suited to royalty like yourself. After all, who knows what he would do?" Sasuke smirked a bit before replying. "Protect me from them," and pointed at the fangirls who looked dejected. "Besides, I'm confident in both mine and his skills, while Hyuga-san here would be an excellent lookout. Naruto is a close combat expert, I've got ninjutsu and genjutsu covered, while Hyuga-san can scout for us even in complete darkness. In other words, we have a complete team that I am very satisfied with and do not wish to change it. Should you insist, I shall refuse to stay in a forest and instead shall set it on fire." Sasuke leaked out his killer intent, a small trick he had learned from Naruto. Mizuki cursed inwardly before going off to attempt and fix up that mess. Meanwhile, Ino and Amy cursed their bad luck and resolved to do something about it. Soon, the group walked away, with some parents following their children even unto the village gates, causing Naruto to groan at how soft they had all become. Sasuke just huffed at the needless shows of affection while Hinata looked down at having no one to see her off. Progressively, more and more of the children's cells broke off as they passed by the points where they would have to set up camp. Naruto, Sasuke and Hinata broke off of the last few groups before making their way to their camping site. Once there, Sasuke and Hinata got to setting up the tents while Naruto began placing traps all around. From simple belt traps to more complicated entangling traps, Naruto surrounded the camp with 3 layers of traps, taking care to add traps even on the trees. After that was taken care of, Naruto went hunting, saying he had done it before. He came back a few moments later with a few fishes hanging from a bit of ninja wire on his waist. Curiously, he didn't look wet at all. The team made small, and obviously limited, small talk. Naruto spent that time mostly observing his two teammates, nodding happily at both of them overcoming their social troubles. Hinata would look at the ground a little bit less and Sasuke actually spoke about himself. Not much, but obviously more than he ever spoke about in class. After a bit of time waiting, the board team decided to have a small bit of training. Naruto and Sasuke faced off in a first blood type spar. Naruto made sure not to unleash his full speed, as that would be unfair to Sasuke. After all, not everyone has a powerful demon that can heal its container from pulled muscles overnight. So, depending mostly on dodges to egg Sasuke on, Naruto managed to get a 3 out of 5, making sure to make Sasuke sweat for the 2 he had won. Hinata refused to take part in the fights and instead chose to watch the 2 rivals duke it out. It was slowly approaching afternoon and still no sign of the sensei that would test them, Naruto admitting they'd probably come in the night to make it harder for them. He justified it by stating that, as the 3 best students, they'd need a challenge to gauge their performance. The other 2 accepted it, even though Hinata still had her reservations about that. They passed their day calmly, with Naruto showing them how to forage for food and how to make a properly hidden campfire. Lunch consisted of a couple of rabbits cut in strips, covered by wild spices and left to cook on flat stones around and over the fire. The afternoon came and went and the 3 made little talk, all 3 of them appreciating the peace and quiet of the forest. Naruto meditated for a bit under the curious eye of Sasuke. Naruto sighed after a little bit, looked at the raven-haired boy and asked him why he was looking at him like that. "Well, so far I never saw a shinobi meditate. I mean, no one in the academy even hinted at this, so I don't get why you're doing it. Naruto removed the sword sheaths from his back and placed them on his lap. Because, I'm not just a ninja or a sword user. I aim to become a sword master since I'm the last of my clan. However, my clan is also a very spiritualistic people. We understand that there's more to fighting than just swinging your arms around like a baboon. We train to understand and connect with our blades on more than a physical level. You see, to us, a sword is not just a weapon, it is a way of life, it is part of our hearts and souls, it is part of what we are. Our swords are our confidants, our friends, our brothers and sisters, the ones we depend the most upon. We all believe that our swords have spirits inside them and we meditate to contact those spirits. I still don't have my swords, but that doesn't mean I shall disrespect these blades. So I seek to connect with them as much as possible before moving on to my rite of passage. Sasuke and Hinata looked surprised, but only Sasuke could actually ask Naruto what he meant. Naruto just smiled a content, peaceful smile that shocked the boy before answering him that he may yet understand one day. Sighing at the not answers he was receiving, Sasuke decided to sharpen his kunai to pass the time while Hinata just sat down and watched both her teammates, blushing and twiddling her fingers. A little after lunchtime, something the team chose to skip just in case, Naruto and the others heard a pair of female, eek, sounds. Naruto quickly made a hand signal to Sasuke and Hinata to follow him hidden. He cautiously walked towards the origin of the sound, kunai in his hands. When he reached his target, Naruto groaned in dismay. There, hanging upside down from the tree were Ino and Amy, caught in one of the traps the team had set up when they got to their designated area. Ino giggled apologetically. Anyo, Naruto-kun, could you please let us down? Naruto sighed, made a couple of cage bunshin and threw a shuriken at each rope, cutting it. The clones caught the girls' bridal style and led them down before vanishing. Sasuke sighed as he looked at Naruto. Sometimes, the blonde was too nice for his own good. Then again, his pranks kind of made that point moot. So why are you here, girls? Don't you have your own campsite to stay at? What about your teammates? The two girls laughed bashfully, embarrassed about the fact they had ran off on their own just to be with their crush. Even though they both liked Sasuke just as much as before, they were the only two girls, as far as they knew that had noticed how muscled Naruto was. They weren't about to let every other girl know before one of the two snagged him. Too bad their situational awareness was not at the level where it would warn them about a certain Hyuga heir's glare. Naruto sighed and shrugged his shoulders. Ah well, might as well get comfortable here. The teacher's kid, and probably would, attack you on your way back. We'll share what provisions we've got. The team went back to their campfire, passing the time with idle chatter, something Amy and Ino were more than glad to participate. Naruto was in charge of the fire while Sasuke kept a watch-out with Hinata. It was many hours later, after the sun had set, that the group began getting restless. The blonde sword wielder had entered a trance-like state when suddenly he opened his eyes and got up, facing outside. In a commanding whisper he spoke to the other 4 members of the team. We have company. And it's not the teachers. On a branch, out of the shadows, landed a man. He was mostly nondescript, with a black suit overall, enabling him to hide almost perfectly in the darkness. Impressive that a child would have sensed me. Too bad you had to die. Naruto moved in front of his team, his muscles flexing and unflexing in preparation of combat. It wasn't that hard to notice you when I think of it. The stink of your killer intent was subtle but noticeable. Who are you and why are you here? The man chuckled and a few more shadows moved, without revealing themselves. The children, and especially Ino, Amy and Hinata, made a small circle around their campfire. Sasuke on the other hand placed himself at Naruto's back and drew his kunai. Nothing personal, boy. Just business with you and the little girl over there. If anything, hate your sensei, he was the one that begged us to kill you in exchange for her eyes after all. Naruto, hearing this, got mad. No scratch that, he was furious. However, his desire to protect his friends took precedence. His left hand moved to his shoulder and slowly, in a non-threatening manner, withdrew his left blade. He handed the sword to Sasuke before looking him in the eye. Sasuke, get the girls and run. I'll keep them here. Towards my back is my sensei's house. If you get there fast enough, he'll be able to get here on time. Sasuke gaped at his friend, while the girls got a shocked look on their faces. What the hell are you talking about, Naruto? I'm not leaving you behind. Don't worry about me, Sasuke. They'll come after me first. Go and protect them. I'm counting on you. Now hurry up and go. The commanding tone of the voice made Sasuke comply with the order, even as he disagreed with it. As he grabbed Hinata's hand to pull her away, he heard the blonde speak up one more time. Sasuke. Make sure to return that blade to me. The black-haired boy grunted and sped off, with the girls right behind him, hoping to reach whoever could help them first. He heard a few sounds of combat behind him but used them to spur the girls to move faster. Back in the clearing, Naruto was calmly calculating and planning his attack. It wouldn't be easy. Sure, he was good for a genin. But these were no genins. Thankfully they were underestimating him, believing he was just a child. Oh, how wrong they were. He was no mere academy student, he was a future Uzumaki Kenshin, the meanest, toughest, most dangerous swordmasters to ever grace Kami's green earth. He wouldn't let some nobodies, from a nobody village, get up to his face and threaten him. Not if they were too scared to even display a headband. As Sasuke left with the girls in tow, he heard a series of sounds. Clack, claw 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 clack. Sheeing, sheeing. In the clearing, however, Naruto was grinning up a storm. A lethal storm. For quite some time, the Uchiha survivor had been asking him what was the deal about his forearm guards. Well, there it was. The fins on the side of his bracers were actually an ingenious mechanical contraption, enabling them to shift to the side, where, with a little bit of wind chakra, Naruto could make a triplet of wind blades at the side of each of his forearms. However, that wasn't all. Another mechanism triggered a blade the length of Naruto's entire forearm to shoot out from the top of the bracer and lock in front of it, over his fist. Naruto's chakra flared, causing his scarf to lash around and his muscles tensed. He took a modified stance of the Rasengan, a frontal stance this time, with his left leg diagonally front and to the side, both arms raised at head level. The blonde swordmaster had long since realized a very simple truth. Spinning in place just wasn't his bread and butter. While many Uzumaki would be content to do just that, he didn't. So, he began experimenting with stances that would allow him to close in on the enemy, while enabling him to quickly shift to the original Rasengan at a moment's notice. The blades on the rim of his arms and in front of his fists were just a bonus. A very lethal bonus. One of the shadowed figures got bored waiting for Naruto to charge, knowing that if what the kid had said was true, then they'd have a bigger fight on their hands soon, one they weren't ready to take on. The man took a kunai from his pouch and charged at Naruto. The blonde mimicked the action, with a small difference. He began charging up chakra at the soles of his feet, ready to be unleashed in an instant for a quick speed boost. At the same time, he used his wind manipulation to extend a trio of blades from the bracers' fins. Time almost stopped for Naruto as his mind went into overdrive, calculating possibilities, motions, actions, events, and finally strategy. With a quick release of his tensed muscles, Naruto shot forth like a rocket from hell, leaving a heavy indentation on the ground below. Seeing the enemies slightly surprised, therefore hurried, Naruto sidestepped and unleashed the stored chakra, blurring past the man. The enemy ninja didn't even realize what went wrong before he died, a clean cut across his throat, a cut no metal weapon had made. On the trees and around the shadows, the rest of the would-be assassins gawked. They hadn't expected that. What they had expected even less was for the two wrist blades to retract, only for Naruto to draw the sword over his right shoulder. At the same time, he used a storage seal on his belt to reveal one of Anko's favorite playthings. It was a slender, curved dagger, one-sided only, ending in a very dangerous-looking, curved tip, like a scalpel almost. Its curve made it extremely sharp and the tip made penetrating armor extremely easy. Naruto's right arm raised to his scarf, his mind already made up. He knew he had taken one of them out, but there was no way they would underestimate him again. Just like he wanted them to attack him, making sure they wouldn't come after his friends. With a calm, almost frozen voice he called out the ritual of introduction of the Kenshin. My name is Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, Kiroi Senko no Namikaze Minato. Namikaze Minato of the Yellow Flash. And Shinku Shi no Uzumaki Kushina, Uzumaki Kushina of the Red Death. No Sochi, son of the aforementioned two. Last heir of the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans as well as the last pureblood Uzumaki swordmaster. Live by the sword. Die by the sword. The man that had spoken before took a step back in fear. He remembered those red-haired devils, those sword-wielding monstrosities. When they appeared, it was like a tornado of death. No one could stop them. Even wounded they fought on, even outnumbered they fought on, even disarmed they fought on, even maimed they fought on. The mere thought that one of them was still alive and training sent shivers down the man's spine. He was quick to recover though, that clan had long since died and the enemy was a child, a mere brat. He couldn't have that much skill behind him, could he? Unfortunately for that man, he didn't know just how much chakra Naruto had or how much of a slave driver Ryu was. Nor did he know how much raw talent Naruto had inherited, or how hard he worked to cover up for years of neglect. He came to an abrupt realization as Naruto's arm grabbed the scarf around his neck and pulled it off, letting it float in the wind. Soft-spoken words caressed the wind of that clearing. Fuinjutsu. Chakra Fuin. Kai. Sealing arts. Chakra seal. Release. Then the chakra came and the world shuddered as Naruto's full power was unleashed. Flexing muscles and clacking his joints, Naruto grinned as a heavy weight was lifted off his body. Come and see just who the fuck you're up against. A man broke ranks at an unannounced signal, charging the blonde mop of hair. He let out a war cry as he brought his kodachi to bear. First rule of combat, do not, under any circumstances, fight your enemy at his advantage. First rule of combat, failed. Naruto's grip on his blades tightened and he vanished. He reappeared an instant later above the charging man, floating in the air, upside down. The man didn't get a chance to gurgle, as two blades lodged themselves into his body and through his lungs via the slits between his ribcage and shoulder blades. He just spat and choked on blood before falling down in spasms. The men didn't hesitate anymore to attack, bringing their weapons to bear, from Kama, to Naginata, to Kodachi, to Wakizashi, to Kusarigama. The shinobi didn't make 3 steps before the most terrifying killer intent they had ever faced washed over them. You see, battle meditations have several interesting effects. Apart from focusing the mind and body into one single uniform task force, they also exuded power and strength linked and compared to their focus. Naruto's offensive battle meditation enabled him to pick the enemy's charge apart, finding the holes and flaws of their styles, but also projected his killer intent in such a potent and concentrated form that the enemy didn't think of victory, but feared for his survival instead. Not wanting to waste the opening, Naruto charged ahead, blades held at his side, ready to cut through flesh, bone and armor. One of the enemy nin dropped in front of the blonde, using a pair of sai as his weapons. Obviously, the man thought that if a swordsman is disarmed, then his skill diminishes severely. And he was correct. Well, for normal swordsmen anyway, not an Uzumaki Kenshin, the meanest, toughest, most capable sword users to have walked the land. The fork-like weapons twirled in the air, blurring so that predicting their next strike would be hard. An instant before Naruto reached the man, the sai stopped their mad dance, almost freezing in time, before coming down on Naruto, aided by their wielder's forward crouch. The attack was aimed at Naruto's knees, as, regardless of how much one trains, the joints can never be strengthened. A single blow at the kneecaps by a sai can easily dislocate them or even permanently disable the target. Thanks to the weapon's weight, it would also be a very simple thing to stab downwards and pull. Even if the boy blocked the blow, the strike could easily be diverted to the side, gathering momentum for a double slash through the ribs and into the boy's lungs and kidney. Besides, even if the boy managed to not parry but block, the sai's forks would be able to disarm him. It was truly a formidable weapon, Naruto analyzed, used at the hands of someone who knew what they were doing, even if it wasn't very good. It would still be an advantage that would stump most aspiring sword users. Keyword: most. Naruto wasn't like most. So, he channeled some chakra into his weapons, stopped prematurely and spun, before using the redirected momentum to dash to the side. It was a surprising maneuver, momentarily surprising the offending shinobi. Naruto didn't waste a breath and run to a tree. Suddenly, he disappeared. The enemy shinobi blinked and saw a tree branch. His mind had barely a second to realize it was a kawaramai before feeling a wickedly curved blade slip through his ribs and into his stomach. The apparent leader was quite surprised. The boy had, seamlessly, used the Kawarimi no Jutsu to replace himself with a branch behind his enemy's turned head. Knowing that his enemy would have followed his movement, Naruto placed himself behind him. Since he was running, he was already in a sprinting position when the transfer was made, exterminating the need to slowly accelerate from a complete stop. It was a nice move, very effective, since it almost bisected the man, a fate fulfilled by the other blade. Naruto looked at his enemies. Quickly he counted them out and analyzed their stances. They were all weapon users, good, he could work with that. Unfortunately for him, they all knew some elemental jutsu, and they were willing to use them. It became apparent as two sword users charged him under cover of techniques. An explosion rocked the place before the clang of metal on metal reverberated. Sasuke was running fast, but his mind was running even faster, the sword's weight in his hand a constant reminder of who he'd left behind. His comrade, his friend, Naruto. Suddenly he stopped, his hair covering his face. He turned on his heels and looked at the girls that were now behind him. You go on, I'm going back to Naruto. That Dobi, he's much weaker without his sword. You three move on and get to help. I will not abandon anyone again. Sasuke became a blur moving through the forest. His anxiety made him push chakra to his feet subconsciously, increasing his speed manifold. Behind the boy, the three terrified girls gulped and moved on, hoping beyond hope to get to safety. Back in the clearing, Naruto was doing his best defending from his attackers. He had long since switched to his defensive battle meditation, knowing that he couldn't attack them and survive for long. A pair of electrified swords descended on him and he couldn't dodge. The blonde raised his sword and dagger in an X-shaped position, blocking. The electrical currents however shocked him and he grunted, but he refused to let go of his swords or collapse. A quick charge of Futon chakra later, and the attacker was blown back into a tree. Naruto smirked, he wasn't going down anytime soon. However, as these words passed through his mind, Naruto's eyes widened as he heard the telltale sound of a blade cutting through the air. An instant later, he was holding back a kodachi from slicing up his throat. Behind him, he could hear his previous attack dash at him. He couldn't block, he couldn't dodge, he was done for. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. Fire style. Grand fireball technique. A large ball of flame covered the charging man, leaving him on fire, burning and trying to survive. A whirling voice made itself known to Naruto's ears and the boy smirked. He would recognize that voice anywhere. His hand abandoned the knife and moved with blinding speed, catching his former sword before, with a sudden weight change and a spin, he sent the man rolling backwards. He looked behind him, to see an equally smirking Sasuke. What? Asked the boy in a tone. You told me to return your sword. I just did, so hurry up already. Naruto turned back to his attackers, his face unreadable but serious. Kono katana ga, moeteku. This sword is burning, he said, surprising them all. Sasuke's burning spirit. His heartfelt desire to help his comrade, even through his own risk, it has passed into this blade. Naruto's hand tightened on the returned sword and it burst into brilliant flames, a roaring, contained, inferno of power. Kono chikara da, with this power. Makeni waken inda. I cannot fail. The first sword was covered in a cocoon of screeching wind and the blades rose into the air, painting their wielder with an aura of indescribable power. Tora no Kame. Tiger's stance. Both swords were risen horizontally, one at head level, the other at the chest. Naruto's feet were at a 45-degree angle, his right foot extended, while his left leg was tensed behind for a charge. Chakra gathered and was condensed in the legs. The previous attacker had barely the chance to place his sword vertically in an attempt to block. It failed, as Naruto's right sword pierced through the wind right onto the kodachi, stabbed next to the man's throat, held back by the guard. A single twitch sent the man's head flying, his corpse falling down like a puppet with its strings cut. Another charged, this time with a kusari gama, a sickle connected to a heavy weight through a chain. Naruto charged and there was a red flash in front of him as the left blade intercepted the weight, cutting off the chain in an instant. Naruto appeared to ignore the man as he continued his dash. The nuke nin only whispered, "H how fast," before keeling over, dead from a destroyed heart. The leader of the group quickly recognized the signs of a blade master connecting to his swords. He had seen enough Uzumaki swordmasters go into a killing spree of unequaled skill and ferocity on the drop of a hat. Quickly he called out to his team. Back off. Everyone, retreat. However, it was not to be as Naruto activated Shunpo and disappeared from sight, only to reappear in their midst. Asoi. Too late. He called out and everyone noticed something strange, behind his flaring chakra and even more powerful swords. He held the swords with their butts together, as if they were a combined single weapon, a two-bladed katana. The weapon was above Naruto's head as he spun on one leg, his aura of chakra going into the blades. The leader had barely enough time to curse before the entire area, almost up to Sasuke, burst into a veritable furnace of fire and wind. Nigio Kentai. Ho no Tatsumaki. Dual Elemental Invocation. Fire Tornado, Fire Dragon Coil. Naruto's spin had created a tornado of wind blades, much like the Dai Kamaitachi, only shaped like a gigantic cylinder, and then promptly set it on fire. The wind cut up everything in range so many times that human bodies became mutilated beyond all belief, while the fire incinerated whatever it touched, not only aided by the wind but also cauterizing the wounds of whatever might actually live through. The massive burning tornado lasted only for a few seconds, but they were enough to reduce everything in a 50 feet range of Naruto to ash and cinders. Sasuke gaped as Naruto panted and lowered his hands, the weapons glowing red hot. A cracking sound came from the blades and they cracked into several small pieces, the stress of the massive jutsu being too much for them. Sasuke ran to his friend, holding him steady. You alright there, Naruto? That was one hell of a jutsu. Actually, it was two hells, and I didn't do it on my own. The raven-haired boy raised an eyebrow in question. What do you mean, Dobi? I saw you clearly perform it. Yeah, I did, admitted the blonde. But, up until now, whenever I tried to do it, it failed and exploded outwards. However, when I got that sword, the blade you returned me, I felt such power, such confidence surge through it. I knew I could do it then. Naruto smiled to his friend warmly. I didn't do it alone, Sasuke. We both did it. Without your spirit aiding me through the blade, it would have failed. Thanks, Sasuke, for everything. The Uchiha Saiyan didn't get to reply, because a very distraught Ryu made his appearance. He had seen the massive technique launch into the sky and he was quite worried. For Naruto to resort into that, it had to have been bad. He quickly spotted his adopted little brother and went to him, checking out if he got any wounds or poison. Moments later, Iruka also showed up, bringing with him a disheveled-looking Mizuki. We came as soon as we saw that fire tower thing. What happened here? Asked the almost hysteric teacher, worried for his students. Naruto turned at him, steel in his eyes. Death. Some bastard had paid a bunch of nuke nin to come kill me and drag Hinata-san off, probably to Kumo. I got the fuckers though. Now, if you excuse me, I am going to collapse. See you tomorrow. A soft thud followed as Naruto indeed fell unconscious in his laughing brother's arms. Well, looks like the Gaki's alright. Sasuke-san, you are to follow me at my residence where you will rest. I think this qualifies as a little bit more than the classic survival test. Iruka-san, Mizuki-san, please return to you students and calm them down, they must be flocking to this place. Oh, and somebody let Sandame know about this mess. Now, off we go. Ryu hefted Naruto on his shoulders, made a clone to gather the shards of the broken swords and, along with Sasuke, they marched towards the former's home. Along the way, they would meet a freaked-out Amy, a terrified Ino and an almost catatonic with fear Hinata, accompanied by a seriously pissed-off Anko. The snake user didn't really like people taking her away from trying to seduce Ryu through sake contests. She didn't like it at all. Especially when she has to babysit a bunch of whiny wannabe kunoichi fangirls. Even in his slumber, Naruto shivered in reflex to the very aura of malice Anko emitted. Needless to say, Sasuke and the three girls were wise enough to not prod at her at all. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.